Chapter 857. In the eyes of the others, the heartless war god twisted and turned crazily. The wounds on his body increased, and in a short while, they were densely packed. Deity Qingyu was horrified. He knew Zhou Xuanji, the top cultivator on the sovereign list. But wasn't this guy a prodigy? It was already incredible that he had reached the origin fusion divine sovereign realm before the age of 2000. Now, he actually had strength that surpassed the heartless war god. Didn't that mean that Zhou Xuanji was really qualified to become the sovereign? The disciples of Emperor Sword Divine Range were extremely excited. The heartless war god's aura was too strong, so strong that it made them feel intimidated. But with Zhou Xuanji's appearance, the heartless war god was nothing. What did this mean? This meant that their ancestor had surpassed the Origin Court war god. What was the status of Origin Court war god? The number one person below Supreme Being. How could the Emperor Sword Divine Range disciples not be excited? Zhou Tanhua was also very excited. After all, he had fought against the heartless war god and knew how terrifying he was. Now that he saw the heartless war god being beaten to the point where he couldn't even resist, his heart was filled with emotions. His father's strength was truly unfathomable. Every time he thought that his cultivation had made a great leap, it was nothing compared to his father's. He did not feel defeated. Instead, he was full of fighting spirit. Heartless battle god roared. He tried his best to struggle, but the speed of the vanishing god sword was too fast. He couldn't use any techniques at all. The most important thing was that the invincible divine sword was invisible and formless. The heartless war god couldn't catch it at all. He couldn't even sense where it was. Although being controlled by the spirit manipulation demonic insect would make one fearless, it would also cause one to lose one's judgment in battle. There are pros and cons. Zhou Xuanji walked on the river of swords and sized up the heartless war god. For some reason, he felt that the heartless war god was similar to the heartless emperor Bai Hao Isin. In terms of appearance, the two of them were worlds apart. However, he always felt that the two of them were somewhat similar. Could it be that Bai Hao Isin had obtained the heartless war god's inheritance? Just as he was thinking, the heartless god of war roared again. His body exploded, turning into wisps of green smoke that dissipated. The invincible godly sword could no longer hurt him, let alone track him down. Interesting. Zhou Xuanji smiled. Numerous greatly avatars flew out from his body and charged toward the green smoke formed by the heartless war god. His great Li doppelganger was much stronger than Zhou Tanhua. Zhou Tanhua's eyes lit up, and his emotions surged like the waves of the sea. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the clones of the Dali dynasty waved their swords to extinguish the wisps of green smoke, forcing the heartless god of war to roar in agony. Hee hee, kid, you've actually become stronger again. An eerie laughter rang out. Everyone turned their heads and saw the evil mother descending from above. Its robes and withered hair danced in the wind. Her peerlessly horrifying aura silenced the entire Kunlun cosmos. Everyone was frightened by her aura and could not move, feeling a chill in their hearts. Deity Qingyu was stunned. He looked at the evil mother spirit controller in fear. This aura. Deity Qingyu suddenly recalled the fear he felt when he faced the Sword Emperor. Could it be that this demonic woman had strength comparable to a supreme being? The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. Supreme Wu Zhou had just left, and now the Kunlun Origin Court was facing such a calamity. He could not help but let his imagination run wild. Could it be that Supreme Wu Zhou had left because there was an enemy he couldn't defeat? Otherwise, why would Supreme Wu Zhou be in such a hurry? Thinking of this, Deity Qingyu could not help but feel despair. At this moment, it was not just the Emperor Sword Divine Range. Battles were happening everywhere in the Kunlun Origin Court. Countless spirit-controlling evil insects were capturing living beings everywhere. Any living being that they attached themselves to would be turned into puppets. The evil mother spirit controller subordinates were increasing rapidly, and the living beings in the Kunlun Origin Court were also decreasing. The Kunlun Origin Court was in a precarious situation. Evil mother spirit controller, you are really difficult to deal with. What do you want to do? Replace the Kunlun Origin Court? Zhou Xuanji looked up at the evil mother spirit controller and asked with a smile. He looked calm on the surface, but his heart was heavy. Although he had comprehended the dark rule, there was still a huge gap between him and the evil mother spirit controller. At least, facing the evil mother spirit controller, Zhou Xuanji felt immense pressure. The evil mother controlling spirit said contemptuously, "The one who offended this seat is a sovereign of your Kunlun origin court. This seat destroyed the Kunlun origin court to take revenge on him. You pitiful creatures should hate him." After that, she raised her hand and slapped Zhou Xuanji. Boom! Zhou Xuanji's sovereign divine energy burst out and blocked the wind from her palm. But the disciples below were all blown away. The majestic Emperor Sword divine range shook violently. The great Li avatars dissipated, and the heartless war god regathered his body. The situation of the battle was reversed in an instant. The Emperor Sword divine range was in a critical situation. God Qingyu looked at the heartless war god and then at the evil mother spirit controller. Gnashing his teeth, he turned around and fled. He had no friendship with the Emperor Sword divine range. This trip was just for the reputation of the Qianxiong divine range. But the enemy was too powerful. He had no choice but to retreat. Zhou Xuanji endured the wind from the evil mother spirit controller's palm. His brows were tightly knitted as he kept thinking of countermeasures. Swoosh! A red arrow tore through the universe and flew toward him. The evil mother spirit controller raised her left hand and caught the arrow with two of her fingers. She glanced over and saw waves of red dust chi sweeping toward her like a vast ocean. Sovereign Hong Chen was in the middle of it. The domineering aura of a sovereign was on full display. She looked at the evil mother spirit controller disdainfully and said with a proud smile, "A bug like you wants to destroy the Kunlun origin court. Do you think you are a sovereign?" The evil mother spirit controller's face darkened. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Zhou Xuanji waved his right hand and sent everyone back to the Emperor Sword divine range. At the same time, he activated the divine range guardian array, leaving him alone in the universe. "Seems like we still have to fight together," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. With the arrival of Sovereign Hong Chen, the pressure on him was greatly reduced. "Not only you." A familiar voice came. It was Li Xianhuang. A giant golden gate that was tens of thousands of meters tall appeared out of nowhere. Li Xianhuang stepped out with his giant halberd, followed by Yuan Ruzhen, Shu Longhua, and the powerhouses of the Sovereign Emperor Divine Range. There were also a few giant figures inside the gate. It was like a miracle. The evil mother spirit controller's face darkened. A look of shock flashed in her eyes. "You didn't expect this, right? It's not that the Kunlun origin court is getting weaker with each generation, but each generation is stronger than the last. Although the Kunlun origin court was almost destroyed, that was against the sovereign. It's more than enough to deal with you," Sovereign Hong Chen said with a mocking smile. The sea of red dust transformed into countless phoenixes that soared around recklessly. "It's more than enough to deal with you." Li Xianhuang raised his halberd and pointed it at the evil mother spirit controller, shouting, "You dare to touch the Kunlun origin court? You must be tired of living. Don't even think about escaping today." As soon as he spoke, the Kunlun universe fluctuated like an illusion. Zhou Xuanji keenly sensed that the surrounding space was filled with a strange energy. When the space-time rules approached it, they froze immediately. It was very strange. Li Xianhuang was freezing the universe space to prevent the evil mother spirit controller from escaping. He narrowed his eyes. His gaze was a little cold. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but even the Emperor Sword divine range was frozen. Chapter 858. With Li Xuanhuang's order, the powerful cultivators of the Sovereign Emperor divine range surrounded the evil mother. The evil mother spirit controller did not panic, nor did she go berserk. She scanned her surroundings and prepared for battle. "Kill!" Li Xianhuang roared. In an instant, a powerful radiance burst out, dazzling the divine wills of all living beings in the divine range. Over 1,000 figures exuding powerful auras began to surround and attack the evil spirit mother. Zhou Xuanji watched quietly. He was shocked by the power of the Sovereign Emperor divine range. All of them were Origin Fusion divine lords. There were more than 200 cultivators who were stronger than level 5. Back in the Meridian Connection Tower, he had not seen such a powerful force. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of explosions continued. The powerful cultivators of the Sovereign Emperor divine range unleashed their divine abilities, forcing the evil mother to defend with its own divine energy. Sovereign Hongchen was also observing and did not make a move. She wanted to see if the Sovereign Emperor divine range could kill the evil mother. Yuan Ruzhen bellowed as his entire body was engulfed in dark red flames. 6 arms grew out of his body, each holding a divine weapon. His long hair turned into flames and burned fiercely. The intensity of the flames rose rapidly and condensed into a dark red sun that hung above his head. He charged forward, passing through the divine ability bombardment, and crashed into the evil mother. The evil mother blocked him with a palm and said with a mocking smile, "So it's you. Your body is still in my hands. Do you miss it?" Yuan Ruzhen was also an Origin Court war god in his previous life, and he died in the hands of the evil mother. He did not mention this to anyone because it was a humiliation to him. Now, the opportunity for revenge had come. Yuan Ruzhen's eyes glowed fiercely as he launched a powerful attack. Violent divine energy blasted toward the evil mother. Facing such attacks, the evil mother dealt with them with ease. At the same time, it was defending against attacks from other directions. Sovereign Hongchen appeared beside Zhou Xuanji and asked softly, "What do you plan to do?" Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and asked with a smile, "What do you mean? With them around, I just need to watch." Sovereign Hongchen gave a faint smile and did not speak anymore. The battle continued. Under the suppression of the revered Emperor Divine Meridians, the heartless war god was killed very quickly. Although the evil mother spirit controller's divine power was boundless, it could only resist. Gradually, it started to get injured. Xu Longhua said softly, "Branchmaster, I feel that things aren't that simple. With her strength, how can she charge into the Kunlun Origin Court? It's impossible for her not to know about the situation in the Kunlun Origin Court." Previously, a large wave of soul-controlling evil insects had intruded into the Kunlun Origin Court, so the evil spirit-controlling mother must have known about it. Looking at the evil mother of soul manipulation, it was clear that she was not flustered at all. There must be a trap. Humph, no matter what kind of conspiracy it is, our revered Emperor Divine Range will destroy it. After all, we are the divine range that gave birth to the next sovereign. Li Xianhuang snorted disdainfully. Golden scales appeared on his face and quickly covered his entire body, forming a set of divine armor that emitted golden and silver divine light that illuminated the universe. As his aura exploded, he raised the giant halberd in his hand and charged forward. Xu Longhua did not act and remained where he was, glancing at Zhou Xuanji indistinctly. Zhou Xuanji noticed his gaze but did not mind. It seemed that the revered Emperor Divine Range wanted to take this opportunity to suppress the Emperor Sword Divine Range. The 10,000-meter-tall Golden Gate had yet to dissipate. There was a majestic aura inside. Apparently, an army was waiting. They were not targeting the evil spirit-controlling mother, but the Emperor Sword Divine Range. "If you want to deal with me, you will have to destroy the evil spirit-controlling mother first." The corner of Zhou Xuanji's mouth rose into an extremely contemptuous smile. Boom! The evil spirit-controlling mother suddenly spread out its arms, sending all the enemies around it flying away. Following that, it raised its hands and crossed its palms, muttering a strange incantation that other creatures could not understand. The revered Emperor Divine Range's experts rushed up again but were blocked by an invisible force. With the evil spirit-controlling mother as the center, no divine energy could penetrate within a radius of 100 feet. A bad feeling emerged in Zhou Xuanji's heart. Xu Longhua and Li Xianhuang also furrowed their brows. Inside the Emperor's Sword Divine Range, standing above the sea of clouds, Zhou Tanhua muttered with a frown, "Is the person that the sovereign mentioned coming?" Zhou Shaoxian, who was next to him, asked in confusion, "What are you talking about? Did you get a reminder from the sovereign when you accepted the sovereign's inheritance?" Zhou Tanhua nodded and took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. Zhou Shaoxian asked, "Why didn't you say it before?" She looked at Zhou Tanhua with a suspicious expression as if to say, "Kid, are you betraying us?" "It doesn't matter if I say it or not. You will understand in a while." Zhou Tanhua rolled his eyes and said in a bad mood. His words made Zhou Shaoxian even more curious. The others around them looked at each other in dismay. In their eyes, Zhou Tanhua was becoming more and more like Zhou Xuanji, unfathomable and always calm. "He's here," Mortal Sovereign said in a soft voice. He had a complicated look on his face. Zhou Xuanji asked curiously, "Who is coming? Does the evil spirit-controlling mother have other stronger puppets?" "A ruthless character. He used to be the sovereign, and his master is also the sovereign," Mortal Sovereign replied. His expression was thought-provoking, which made Zhou Xuanji raise his brow. Throughout history, There were not many cases where both master and disciple were sovereigns. Xueqi asked curiously, "What's his name, and who is his revered master?" "He is called Sovereign Kong Sheng. His revered master's name is very mysterious, but it should be very familiar to you," Mortal Sovereign explained with a meaningful smile. Xueqi furrowed his brow. He suddenly had an answer in his heart. He asked with his eyes, and Mortal Sovereign nodded. Xueqi was moved, and his expression became strange. "Little Sovereign." Sovereign Kong Shang belongs to the few sovereigns who didn't leave the Kunlun origin court. He has been sleeping in an independent plane. When I faced the Sword Emperor, I went to find him but I couldn't wake him up. This person used to be the adopted son of the evil spirit-controlling mother. He once sealed the evil spirit-controlling mother with his own hands, so he felt very guilty. He claimed that if the evil spirit-controlling mother escaped again, he wouldn't do anything. He would even help the evil spirit-controlling mother to repay the kindness of raising him, Mortal Sovereign explained leisurely. She didn't use a sound transmission technique, but Xu Longhua, who was in the distance, could hear her. Sovereign Kong Sheng. Xu Longhua's expression changed drastically. He had guessed many possibilities, but he didn't expect that the evil spirit-controlling mother's backer was a sovereign. Sovereign Kong Sheng. He was a famous sovereign who had shocked history. He was the first sovereign to initiate the Great Elimination. But at that time, it wasn't called the Great Elimination. The rules of the Great Elimination only existed in the super divine ranges. This is going to be troublesome. Xu Longhua's expression was gloomy as he tried to think of a countermeasure. If Sovereign Kong Shang came, they would definitely lose. The Sovereign Emperor Divine Range also stopped attacking. Everyone became restless. They could feel an extremely strong pressure coming at them, which made them panic as if a great calamity was coming. Li Xianhuang furrowed his brow. He was fighting just now and didn't pay attention to Mortal Sovereign's words. He was looking around, guarding against the enemy's sneak attack. The evil spirit controlling mother's face was gloomy. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. She was looking at all the experts of the Sovereign Emperor Divine Range as if she wanted to remember all their faces. Chapter 859. It's Sovereign Kong Shang. Xu Longhua transmitted his voice to Li Xianhuang. Hearing this, Li Xianhuang's expression changed drastically. How is this possible? Why would Sovereign Kong Shang help the demons who want to destroy the Kunlun origin court? He still remembered all kinds of legends about Sovereign Kong Shang. When he was young, he even regarded Sovereign Kong Shang as his lifelong goal. Now that such an ancient powerhouse was about to arrive, the pressure on him suddenly increased. Damn it! We must retreat. Li Xianhuang quickly made a decision. Once Sovereign Kong Shang arrived, let alone the Sovereign Emperor Divine Range, even all the Sovereign Divine Ranges together wouldn't be able to stop him. Just as he was about to give an order, a boundless pressure that seemed to come from ancient times descended. He felt as if his throat was being strangled, making him unable to speak. He turned his head in horror. The same was true for all the Sovereign Emperor Divine Ranges experts. Xueqi and Sovereign Hong Chen also looked in the direction they were looking. They saw a giant shadow appear in the darkness at the end of the universe. It seemed to be some kind of giant bird. It was flying so fast that only its shadow could be seen. Just its shadow alone was much larger than the divine ranges next to it. Looking from afar, it gave off a strong sense of oppression. Sovereign Kong Shang hadn't even appeared yet, but the Sovereign Emperor Divine Ranges experts were already in despair. How could they defeat such an imposing aura? Xueqi silently took out the Lesser Supreme Sword. Together with the Emperor's Sword of Life and Death, they were suspended on both sides. Little Sovereign, wake up! He called Little Sovereign in his heart. After a while, Little Sovereign woke up lazily. Kid, what's wrong? He cried out in dissatisfaction. He was having an unspeakable dream and was interrupted. He was a little angry. Xueqi replied in his heart, Look who's here. Little Sovereign was stunned for a moment before he released his divine will. In the distance, the giant bird's shadow was still looming. It didn't come close. But the pressure was getting stronger. All the experts under the Origin Fusion Divine Lord 5 Enlightened Ones were shivering. All the Enlightened Ones directly knelt in the void. Whoosh! 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 Air-piercing sounds could be heard coming from all directions. Everyone looked left and right and saw many strong cultivators gathering around them. Nanmu Tianyi, Chu Xinquang, Ancestor Hong Chen, the 12 Law ancestors, and so on. All the top experts of various forces had gathered. Every one of them had a solemn look on their faces. Zhou Xuanji looked around, and his gaze fell on Nanmu Tianyi's face. Why is there something wrong with this fellow? Zhou Xuanji frowned and thought in confusion. Nanmu Tianyi's forehead was covered with strange black dots. They were densely packed and looked very evil. Not only him, but young Heavenly Lord and Wang Buao also felt the same way. What did the three of them encounter? Why did they all look like this? Nanmu Tianyi did not notice Zhou Xuanji's gaze. His face was dark as he mumbled, "Sovereign's aura? Could that legend be true?" Young Heavenly Lord asked curiously, "What are you talking about? What legend?" He looked at the shadow of the giant bird in the depths of the universe, and his scalp went numb. Why did another super-strong enemy appear? In just a short span of 100 years, the Kunlun Origin Court had encountered two great calamities that were hard to come by in a billion years. This was not a good sign. The evil mother snorted coldly, "Brat, get over here." Her impatient tone was like a heavy hammer pounding on everyone's heart. As soon as he finished speaking, a loud and clear sound of footsteps could be heard. It was clearly in the void, but the sound of footsteps could be heard, making the atmosphere even more horrifying. Sovereign Kong Sheng's figure soon appeared in everyone's sight. He was wearing a white robe and dressed like a scholar. He had an elegant temperament and looked to be in his 40s. He was extraordinarily handsome and had a pair of eagle-like eyes, brimming with vigor. Everyone's heart shuddered at the sight of him. Sovereign Kong Sheng was the kind of existence that would scare people with just a glance. Even if he looked gentle and elegant, this impression was hard to erase. "Mother, your hatred is too great," Sovereign Kong Sheng sighed. Autarch Kong Sheng sighed, the light in his eyes fading away. Facing the evil mother spirit controller, he felt guilty. He continued to sigh. "You were so graceful back then. But now you have become like this. Why bother? As long as you are willing to give up, I can save you." Everyone held their breath as cold sweat overflowed from their foreheads. "Damn! How come it's this brat?" Little Sovereign's exclamation resounded in Zhou Xuanji's mind. He then muttered, "No wonder the evil mother looked so familiar." It turned out to be her. Back then, she was a rare beauty in the Kunlun Origin Court. I didn't expect that girl to embark on this evil path. Tiska, she used to be full of kindness. She adopted many homeless children and established her own sect. How did she end up like this? His tone was filled with disdain. Zhou Xuanji asked in his heart. In Sovereign Kong Sheng's heart, who is more important, you or his adoptive mother? He could tell from Sovereign Kong Sheng's attitude that he was a filial son. How could his master be more important than his mother? "Of course it's me," Little Sovereign proudly said in Zhou Xuanji's mind. His adoptive mother has been with him for 16 years, and I have taught him for 30,000 years. He has escaped from death many times thanks to me. While they were talking, Sovereign Kong Sheng had already arrived beside the evil mother. The evil mother coldly said, "What? You don't keep your promise? Do you know what kind of suffering I had to go through to save you? How many difficulties did I have to go through to let you become Little Sovereign's disciple?" Hearing this, Sovereign Kong Sheng felt guilty. He sighed and turned his head to look at the people in front of him. He faintly said, "As the Sovereign, I should think about the people of the Origin Court. I don't owe the Origin Court anymore. Now it's time to repay the kindness of raising me. I'm sorry." After saying this, he raised his right hand. "You are Sovereign Kong Sheng? Do you want to attack your descendants?" Nanmu Tianyi suddenly shouted. His tone was extremely disrespectful. He was denouncing Sovereign Kong Sheng. No one blamed him in their heart. On the contrary, they were indignant. It wasn't wrong to die in the hands of the demons outside the court. What was wrong was to die in the hands of the sovereign they believed in. Sovereign Kong Sheng looked at Nanmu Tianyi and replied, "Being the sovereign for a while doesn't mean that I will be the sovereign forever. The path to becoming the sovereign is not to be supported by all living beings but to suppress all living beings to reach the top and then bless all living beings. Apart from your cheap faith, all living beings have not given me anything in return. You mortals will never understand how many things I have lost for all living beings." He said it very calmly and casually. But such an attitude made people feel bitterly disappointed. This world-shaking supreme being did not have any pity for the common people. The evil mother coldly snorted and said, "Why didn't you realize this at the beginning? It seems that you have encountered a lot of difficulties after I was sealed." Sovereign Kong Shang shook his head and stepped forward. "Kill them all. Leave no one alive. As long as I kill them, I don't need you to do anything." The evil mother laughed mockingly. Hearing this, Sovereign Kong Shang rolled his eyes. If these people were killed, what threat would the Kunlun Origin Court have to the evil mother? "Damn it, let's fight it out," Yuan Ruzhen roared. He was once the Origin Court war god and most respected the sovereign. How could he tolerate the sovereign's betrayal? Chapter 860. Yuan Ruzhen's roar ignited everyone's anger. Looking at Sovereign Kong Shang, they were no longer afraid. Their blood was boiling. Yeah. So what if he's a sovereign? If the sovereign wants to kill us, then we will kill the sovereign. Yeah, we have already faced the Sword Emperor. Why should we be afraid of him? I can't stand this cowardice. At worst, I will die. Let's do it together. The experts of each divine range were filled with indignation. They all roared and cheered each other on. Sovereign Kong Shang was expressionless. He didn't stop. At this critical moment, Xueqi suddenly stepped forward and asked in a loud voice, "Sovereign Kong Shang, in your heart, do you owe your adoptive mother the most?" As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes fell on Xueqi, including Sovereign Kong Shang. The evil mother also looked at Xueqi in surprise. She wondered what this kid wanted to say. In the Emperor's Sword Divine range, Jiang Shui, Zhou Tanhua, and the others were anxious. What is father doing? The bird that sticks out gets shot. Zhou Shaoxian couldn't wait. She wanted to rush out, but the Divine Range Guardian Array was blocking her way. No one could break through. Jiang Shui patted her chest and said calmly, "Xuanji must have a way." The others couldn't help but look forward to it. "What do you mean?" Sovereign Kong Shang stared at Zhou Xuanji and asked calmly. He could hear the underlying meaning. Zhou Xuanji obviously knew something. "If your revered master asks you to help your mother, what will you do?" Zhou Xuanji stared at him without fear. His tone was thought-provoking. The evil mother's expression changed. She instantly guessed who Zhou Xuanji was talking about. Little Sovereign. It had been so long. Shouldn't Little Sovereign have been forgotten by everyone? After all, Little Sovereign didn't make any significant contributions. He wasn't outstanding in history. Not many people remembered him. She asked in a cold voice, "Brat, where did you come from?" Sovereign Kong Shang furrowed his brow. He stared at Zhou Xuanji as if he wanted to see through him. "Sovereign Kong Shang, I'm asking you a question. Which is more important, your teacher's kindness or your upbringing?" Zhou Xuanji stared at Sovereign Kong Shang and asked forcefully. The Lesser Supreme Sword suddenly flew in front of him and rotated at high speed. The powerful aura of Little Sovereign leaked out. Sovereign Kong Shang's expression changed drastically. Even the evil mother couldn't help but be shocked. Could it be? Impossible. Yuan Ruzhen's eyes widened. When he was still the Origin Court war god, he had seen Little Supreme's glory. That arrogant and contemptuous existence was still alive? The other creatures were both nervous and curious. Could that divine sword be the keepsake of Supreme Kong Shang's master? What is your relationship with my master? Autarch Kong Shang asked, but he already had an answer in his heart. Could it be that this child had obtained his master's inheritance? No wonder he could become a sole sovereign. Therefore, his heart was filled with confusion. On one side was his master, and on the other side was his adoptive mother. Who should he choose? A soul flew out of the Lesser Supreme Sword. It was Little Supreme Sword. He glared angrily at Supreme Exalt Kong Shang and cursed loudly, "You bastard! Have you forgotten what I taught you?" He learned about Sovereign Kong Shang's words from Zhou Xuanji. "I don't betray all living beings. All living beings owe me." This sentence was too King heartless. When Supreme Kong Shang saw him, he hurriedly knelt down and cupped his fists. "Greetings, master." He was very excited. His master was actually still alive. "Don't call me master. You are going to destroy the Kunlun Origin Court for the sake of the demons. Are you crazy? Don't say that you are betraying your duty as a sovereign. Once you do this and leave the Kunlun Origin Court, you will die without a doubt. Little Supreme angrily rebuked Supreme Kong Sheng in a tone of exasperation and disappointment. All the creatures in the universe were dumbfounded. This is Sovereign Kong Sheng's master? In other words, Zhou Xuanji and Sovereign Kong Sheng are very likely to be brothers. The Emperor's Sword Divine Range was in an uproar. This kid actually has such a backer. Daoya Old Man said excitedly. The others were also pleasantly surprised, including Jiang Shui, Zhou Tanhua, and Zhou Shaoxian. Zhou Shaoxian said excitedly, Tanhua has the inheritance of the current sovereign. Father has the backing of an ancient sovereign. Our Emperor's Sword Divine Range is going to take off. Looking at Sovereign Kong Sheng's attitude, he was obviously in awe of Little Supreme. He is really a treasure. How many powerful cultivators are helping him? Ran Niming sighed with emotion. Ever since he knew Zhou Xuanji, many powerful cultivators had taken a liking to Zhou Xuanji and risked their lives to save him. This was the terrifying effect of aptitude. He couldn't even be jealous. Revered Master, Facing Little Sovereign's scolding, Sovereign Kong Sheng felt very ashamed. He didn't know how to answer. Little Sovereign crossed his arms over his chest and snorted, I don't ask you to kill her, but you can't help her harm the world. Once a sovereign, forever a sovereign. Sovereign Kong Sheng lowered his head. He wished he could find a hole to hide in. The evil mother-controlling spirit said in a cold voice, What? Are you going to kill your mother again? Sovereign Kong Sheng shuddered. He didn't answer. At this moment, he fell into a dilemma. He didn't know how to choose. His heart was filled with regret. If I had known this earlier, I would have stayed in seclusion and never come out. Seeing Sovereign Kong Sheng in such a sorry state, everyone looked at each other in dismay. All of them found it unbelievable. At the same time, they were curious about Little Sovereign. Who is this person? Li Xianhuang asked Xu Longhua in a low voice. Xu Longhua furrowed his brow and said hesitantly, Sovereign Kong Sheng has many masters, but the one he respects the most is Little Sovereign. Little Sovereign. Li Xianhuang was moved. The name Little Sovereign sounded worse than ordinary sovereigns. But if one knew Little Sovereign's past, they would understand that Little Sovereign's strength surpassed most grand sovereigns. The other Sovereign Range Masters and Super Divine Range Masters were discussing Little Sovereign's identity. Sovereign Kong Sheng gritted his teeth and said, Then I won't help her, but I hope Revered Master won't do anything to her either. This was the biggest concession he could make. The evil mother-controlling spirit sneered, You are still so weak. As a sovereign, you are so respectful. You are really a disgrace to the sovereigns. No matter how she ridiculed Sovereign Kong Sheng, he remained unmoved. He looked up at Little Sovereign with a complicated expression and asked, Revered Master, how did you end up like this? Before he could finish his words, Little Sovereign glared at him. What do you know? This is called cultivation. Cultivating sovereigns is my hobby. This kid named Zhou Xuanji will become a sovereign. Moreover, he will become a sovereign that has never been seen before. You will see it in the future. Little Sovereign snorted. His words made everyone's expression drastically change. Zhou Xuanji looked calm as he watched Little Sovereign build momentum for him. This old kid is quite tactful. Sovereign Kong Sheng turned to look at Zhou Xuanji and carefully sized him up. The more he looked, the more shocked he became. What kind of power is in his body? I can't even see through it. He exclaimed in his heart. He suddenly developed a strong interest in Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji said, Sovereign Kong Sheng, since you don't want to help her, then you should leave, lest you get into trouble again. Chapter 861. Zhou Xuanji's words made Sovereign Kong Sheng fall into silence. He didn't respond immediately. He was still thinking about Zhou Xuanji's origin. The atmosphere became extremely solemn. Little Sovereign, on the other hand, was very upset. He scolded. Why are you being so wishy-washy? Are you going to get lost or not? His irritation made all the students break out in a cold sweat. Little Sovereign might have a very powerful origin, but he was only left with a soul while Sovereign Kong Sheng was still in his peak state. If he angered Sovereign Kong Sheng, could Little Sovereign bear it? Sovereign Kongshang's eyes flickered. In the end, he bowed to Little Sovereign before turning around and leaving. Brat! You heartless brat! How dare you abandon me again? The evil mother controlling spirit angrily rebuked. Her eyes were bloodshot, looking very ferocious. However, no matter what she said, Sovereign Kongshang didn't look back. Kill! Nanmu Tianyi immediately ordered. The Tianyi Divine Range's experts took the lead. Next were the Sovereign Emperor Divine Range, Qianqiong Divine Range, Mortal Divine Range, and so on. As soon as the Sovereign Divine Ranges attacked, the other Super Divine Ranges also made their moves. The great battle broke out once again. All kinds of divine abilities bombarded the evil mother controlling spirit. The evil mother controlling spirit didn't sit still and wait for death. It immediately manipulated its puppets to fight. Zhou Xuanji didn't intervene in the rest of the battle. As long as Sovereign Kongshang didn't intervene, the evil mother controlling spirit was dead. The evil mother controlling spirit's plan was good. Unfortunately, it ran into Zhou Xuanji and Little Sovereign. Otherwise, Sovereign Kongshang might really kill the Kunlun origin court for the sake of nurturing her. Yuan Ruzhen was the most violent and furious. He rushed to the front and was repelled by the evil mother controlling spirit again and again. Yet he could still launch attacks. The other powerful cultivators were also very strong. They suppressed the evil mother controlling spirit to the point that it couldn't resist. Zhou Xuanji and Little Sovereign quietly watched the battle. I really didn't expect her to end up like this. Little Sovereign sighed with emotion. His tone was full of sorrow. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "It's all fate." Little Sovereign curled his lips and said, "You are already a soul sovereign. Do you still believe in fate?" Zhou Xuanji could hear that he was really sad. It seemed like the evil spirit controlling mother was really a peerless beauty in the past. Now, she had fallen into a state that was neither a human nor a ghost. Otherwise, how could a supreme martial artist of a generation sigh in admiration? Little Sovereign didn't let him make a move. They watched the defeat of the evil spirit controlling mother together. In less than an hour, the evil spirit controlling mother was suppressed by Nanmu Tianyi with a golden alms bowl. The other almighty experts from the various divine ranges also applied sealing techniques. In the blink of an eye, the golden alms bowl was covered with tens of thousands of different seals. It was impossible for the evil spirit controlling mother to break free on its own. The creatures controlled by the mind-controlling evil insects were also sealed one after another. This calamity ended just like that. However, the atmosphere was still quite strange, and all of the creatures looked at Zhou Xuanji with complicated expressions. Li Xianhuang took a step forward and asked, "May I know Senior's name? Are you the Little Sovereign who has shaken the ages?" Little Supreme Sovereign. Some creatures were immediately moved, but most of them were very curious. What was the origin of Little Supreme Being? The word little made them feel that Little Sovereign was just a half-step sovereign. "So what if I am?" Little Sovereign said with an arrogant look on his face. This was his nature, but in fact, he was just pretending. The stronger he appeared, the less people would dare to plot against him. Nanmu Tianyi then asked, "Are you going to make Zhou Xuanji the sovereign?" These words tugged at the hearts of all the living beings present. The competition for the sovereign's position was the hottest topic at the moment. I naturally hope that he can succeed, but the sovereign's position depends on the people. You can play with him as much as you want, but you will die easily. Whether it's worth it or not, it all depends on you. There is only one sovereign in each era. If you don't become the sovereign, it doesn't mean that you can't achieve great things. Little Sovereign replied, his voice reaching the ears of all the living beings. These words didn't surprise everyone. Instead, they fell into contemplation. They felt that what Little Sovereign said made sense. No matter how they fought, there was only one sovereign. Thousands of troops crossing a single log bridge wasn't even enough to describe it. If they didn't become the sovereign, they could still live freely. If they wanted to become the sovereign, they would have to fight all over the Kunlun origin court. Yeah, in fact, we don't have any hope of becoming the sovereign. There are only a few people who are really qualified to become the sovereign. Why should we offend Little Sovereign for this? Zhou Xuanji is indeed powerful. He also contributed to the battle against the Sword Emperor and Dark Sovereign. I heard from the 12 ancestors that Zhou Xuanji indeed killed the Sword Emperor and Dark Sovereign. But at that time, The cultivation of the two sovereigns was suppressed to the Origin Fusion Divine Lord realm. Doesn't it mean that he is invincible in the same realm? In this catastrophe, it's all thanks to his appearance that Sovereign Kong Shang was forced to retreat. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow as he listened to the discussions of all living beings. He didn't expect Little Sovereign's words to be so useful. Nanmu Tianyi flew over and said with a smile, "Brother Xuanji, your progress is beyond my expectations every time. I don't even dare to speculate about your possibilities." In his opinion, Zhou Xuanji already had the qualifications to become the sovereign. However, Zhou Xuanji's limit wasn't as simple as Great Sovereign Lord. "I think Brother Nanmu also has an opportunity," Zhou Xuanji said with a faint smile. Zhou Xuanji said with a faint smile as he exchanged pleasantries with Nanmu Tianyi. Nanmu Tianyi burst into laughter. The two chatted for a while before Nanmu Tianyi suddenly turned to look at all living beings and shouted, "I, Nanmu Tianyi, on behalf of the Tianyi Divine Range, declare that I strongly support Zhou Xuanji to become the sovereign. Whoever dares to stop Zhou Xuanji from becoming the sovereign will be the enemy of the Tianyi Divine Range." Wah! Everyone was in an uproar. Even Li Xianhuang, Chu Xinquang, Old Ancestor Hongchen, the 12 Law Ancestors, and other peerless powerhouses had their expressions drastically changed. Xu Longhua's eyes flickered as he mumbled, "Nanmu Tianyi, you are using the same trick you used in the past again." When Sovereign Wu Zhou rose, Nanmu Tianyi supported Sovereign Wu Zhou and helped him become the sovereign. After that, the originally desolate Tianyi Divine Range began to rise and became one of the top 3. Yuan Ruzhen furrowed his brow. His eyes were burning with anger. He hated Zhou Xuanji and he believed in the position of the sovereign. How could he hope for Zhou Xuanji to become the sovereign? "Okay, everyone, please disperse. My Emperor Sword Divine Range can't bear your presence here. I reckon many disciples have been overwhelmed by your divine might," Zhou Xuanji said, cupping his fists. Zhou Xuanji said as he cupped his fist. He tried to resolve the tense atmosphere with a joke. All the powerhouses burst into laughter and left one after another. In less than the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, there were no other divine ranges in this universe. Zhou Xuanji, Little Sovereign, and Mortal Sovereign were floating in front of the Emperor Sword Divine Range. "Brat, whether or not you can become a sovereign will depend on yourself. You already have 2 nomological powers, and you're only one step away from becoming a sovereign. You don't have to collect nomological powers one by one. All you need to do is cultivate the soul nomological powers to the extreme and absorb 3,000 nomological powers into your soul." Little Sovereign stared at Zhou Xuanji and said seriously. Autarch Crimson Dust nodded. "I will help you become an autarch." Hearing this, Little Sovereign glanced at her and said with a faint smile, "Are you going to use the cultivation method this sovereign taught you in the past?" Chapter 862. Seeing the weird smile on Little Sovereign's face, Zhou Xuanji was speechless. But Mortal Sovereign pretended not to hear him. He stared at Zhou Xuanji and said, "You reach Origin Fusion Divine Lord 10 clears first, then I will help you." Shimming? Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. He thought that Origin Fusion Divine Lord only had 9 enlightened realms and did not expect him to have 10 enlightened realms. Supreme Hong Chen coldly glanced at Little Sovereign before disappearing from the spot. "Teska, she's really interesting. She wasn't like this in the past." Little Sovereign teased with a gloating tone. Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes at him before turning around and entering the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. The shock of the Kunlun Origin Court had just begun. After all, this battle involved 2 Supremes. After returning to the Divine Range, Zhou Xuanji received deafening cheers. All the disciples were shouting Zhou Xuanji's name to express their excitement and surprise. Zhou Shaoxian and Zhou Tanhua suddenly became very interested in Zhou Xuanji. They began to pester him, hoping to get his teachings. The disciples of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range became even more excited as they cultivated diligently. In just a few days, a slogan spread in the Divine Range. "Cultivate for the sake of the supremacy. Help divine ranges become venerables." Most of the disciples changed their mindset to not drag Zhou Xuanji down. Judging from the current situation, Zhou Xuanji was almost certain to become the sovereign. With the help of a supreme being, his aptitude was unprecedented. If he couldn't become a supreme being, who could? At the same time, Sovereign Kong Shang, Little Sovereign, and Zhou Xuanji became the most frequently mentioned names in the Kunlun origin court. Everyone was shocked. Was Zhou Xuanji really going to become the sovereign? If he succeeded, he would be the fastest person in history to become a supreme. There was no other. Now, Zhou Xuanji was not even 2,000 years old. Ever since he broke into the Kunlun origin court, he had amazed the world with a single brilliant feat. By now, all living beings were already used to his existence. Speaking of Zhou Xuanji, everyone's impression was that he was a peerless genius. Now, this prodigy had already launched a powerful attack towards the position of a supreme being. This kind of qualitative change would cause an extremely strong shock to the hearts of all living beings. And this kind of shock would give rise to extreme worship. More and more creatures began to worship Zhou Xuanji and even cheered for him. Zhou Xuanji should become the sovereign. That's right. Looking at Zhou Xuanji's rise, if he's not the sovereign, who is worthy to be the sovereign? Among all the sovereigns in history, none of them is as legendary as Zhou Xuanji. His path to the supremacy stage has gone through 5 supremacies. The Sword Emperor is the sovereign of Anti-Kunlun. This proves that Zhou Xuanji is qualified to become the sovereign. Who can tell me what happened before Zhou Xuanji entered the Kunlun origin court? Zhou Xuanji's voice began to spread throughout the Kunlun origin court. Many divine ranges were discussing this matter. Some range masters wanted to suppress him, but this kind of voice had already gained momentum. It was impossible to suppress it. Of course, more divine ranges were supporting and even promoting such a call. If they could gain Zhou Xuanji's favor, their future development would be even smoother. This was standing on the supreme martial artist's side. Although Zhou Xuanji was cultivating in the Emperor's Sword divine range, with Chang Xian as his spy, he could clearly understand the movements of the Kunlun origin court. After knowing all of this, he didn't seem too excited and remained very calm. He only had one goal now: breaking through to the Origin Fusion Divine Monarch 10th Brilliance. His current cultivation was Origin Fusion Divine Lord 8 Comprehensions. It seemed close, but in fact, the gap was like heaven and earth. It was very difficult to surpass. Little Sovereign fell into a deep sleep again. If Zhou Xuanji didn't call him, he wouldn't wake up. In the blink of an eye, 10 years passed. A palace in the Origin Court was filled with clouds and mist. The 12 technique ancestors stood in a circle, looking solemn. Each of them was holding 3 jade slips. They looked at each other in dismay. No one spoke. After a long while, a technique ancestor who looked like a young man said, "What's there to hesitate about? I recommend Zhou Xuanji. This kid has talent, ability, background, benevolence, decisiveness, and ruthlessness. He is the most suitable candidate to become the sovereign." As soon as he said this, the other technique ancestors also spoke up. "I also choose Zhou Xuanji." The sovereigns who are related to Zhou Xuanji are the Sword Emperor, Sovereign Kong Shang, and Little Sovereign. Who else should we choose but him? Don't forget that the sovereign asked him to kill the Sword Emperor and the Darkness Sovereign with his own hands. Let's choose Zhou Xuanji. Only his divine range is established for the first time. God knows how much trouble will be involved if he chooses another divine range. Let's vote. After chatting for a while, the 12 technique ancestors raised their hands to vote. In the end, 9 people chose Zhou Xuanji to be the sovereign. In that case, let's start building momentum for Zhou Xuanji. His current cultivation is Origin Fusion Divine Lord 8 Comprehensions, and he's ranked first on the sovereign list. "It's very easy to build momentum," said an old technique ancestor. The other technique ancestors nodded upon hearing this. They immediately took action. This year, the Origin Court announced that Zhou Xuanji was ranked first on the sovereign list and had never tasted defeat. They elected Zhou Xuanji as the first candidate for sovereign. As soon as this statement came out, the Kunlun Origin Court was shocked. Countless creatures were talking about this matter. Most of them expressed their support. A new sovereign ascended to the top meant that a new era had arrived. When the news reached the Emperor's Sword divine range, it shocked the entire Origin Court. Daoya Old Man held a celebration for Zhou Xuanji. All the disciples of the range celebrated together. Although Zhou Xuanji didn't attend, the disciples were still very excited. On this day, a technique ancestor came in person to congratulate Zhou Xuanji. He led 100 Origin Fusion Divine Lords and brought all kinds of gifts. Jiang Shui, Chang Xian, and the others welcomed them and gathered in the conference hall. Senior Mei, how can we trouble you to come in person? Jiang Shui said with a smile. Her tone was very calm. She didn't seem to be humble or arrogant. Senior Mei waved his hand, smiled, and said, if nothing goes wrong, Zhou Xuanji will become the next sovereign. In the future, he will be the leader of the 12 technique ancestors. The technique ancestors only sent me, which is already disrespectful. It's just that they are busy with the ascension of the sovereign. Jiang Shui gave Chang Xian a look. Chang Xian immediately understood and left quietly. Senior Mei continued with a smile. In today's origin court, there is no genius who can rival Zhou Xuanji. It's no exaggeration to say that there is no genius who can rival Zhou Xuanji in history. He began to flatter Zhou Xuanji without holding back. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. At first, Jiang Shui was able to keep calm. But toward the end, she was beaming with joy. Daoya Old Man, the Little Black Snake, Bei Xiao Wangjian, and the others also began to flatter Zhou Xuanji. The more powerful Zhou Xuanji was, the more glorious they looked. After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Zhou Xuanji appeared in the hall. As soon as he appeared, Senior Mei stood up. In the previous battle with the spirit-controlling evil mother, Senior Mei had seen Zhou Xuanji's elegance. He cupped his fists and said with a smile, Brother Zhou, we meet again. The next time we meet, I may have to call you sovereign. The compliment had already turned into a positive expression. Chapter 863. Zhou Xuanji sat on the main seat with his hands on his knees. He looked at Senior Plum and asked with a smile, so the Origin Court has already recognized me as the sovereign, or are there other tests later? He noticed the title of the first candidate. Senior Plum nodded and said, there is indeed a test, but judging from the current momentum of the Kunlun Origin Court, it is almost certain that you will become a supreme. When the others heard this, they all became excited. They had long dreamed of Zhou Xuanji becoming the sovereign, and this day finally became clear to them. Zhou Xuanji nodded and asked, what do I need to prepare next? Do I need to wait until I reach the sovereign's power, or? Senior Mei waved his hand and transmitted his voice. Once you become a supreme being, you will obtain supreme god force. As long as you have the cultivation of an origin fusion divine monarch, you will be able to obtain supreme god force. This matter must not be spread. For him to reveal such a secret, it could be said that he was treating Zhou Xuanji like a sovereign. Zhou Xuanji nodded and began to exchange pleasantries with Senior Mei. After chatting for almost an hour, Senior Mei finally left with her people. Zhou Xuanji asked Bei Xiao Wangjian and the others to take inventory of the ancestors' gifts. Looking at Bei Xiao Wangjian and Huang Lianxin, he suddenly thought of Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Congjian, and the rest. He wondered how they had been lately. They had not returned for a long time. Wow, the ancestor of technique is so generous. So many high-grade Dao stones, magic treasures, and origin court techniques and magical powers. Zhou Xiaoxian exclaimed in surprise, holding a golden silk bag. The others were also holding different bags and rings of holding, all of them very excited. Jiang Shui walked to Zhou Xuanji's side and asked softly, you don't seem to be happy. You're about to become the sovereign. Are you still afraid that something will go wrong before that? Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and asked with a smile, how do you know? Jiang Shui curled her lips and said, I can guess it just by looking at your serious expression. Zhou Xuanji pulled her into his embrace and smiled. His eyes became clear. He began to think about how to break through to the Origin Fusion Divine Lord 10th Brightness. With his current rate of growth, it would take a very long time. As for absorbing other living beings to become stronger, that was temporarily out of the question. Right now, he was trying to break through to the Supreme Exalt realm. How could he lift a rock and smash his own foot? No matter how discreet he was, he would still be exposed. Haste makes waste. Forget it. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Looking at his trusted subordinates who were having fun in the palace, he could not help but smile. The news about the technique ancestors coming to the Emperor Sword Divine Range spread like wildfire in the Kunlun Origin Court. This confirmed that Zhou Xuanji had become a sovereign candidate, and not just any ordinary candidate. The technique ancestors treated Zhou Xuanji as the next sovereign. For a time, a storm was brewing in the Kunlun Origin Court. Those on the sovereign ranking, on the other hand, were having a hard time. Being on the sovereign ranking had given rise to their ambitions for the position of sovereign. But now, their ambitions had no choice but to be destroyed. They suffered a great blow and felt very uncomfortable. They wanted to give up on this thought, but they felt extremely reluctant, as if they were cutting off a part of their heart. Void Boundary Palace. A void boundary heavenly venerate sat on the main seat. He had a dignified expression as he looked at the void boundary war gods in the hall. He said, "That's all I have to say. Go and make preparations. Remember, do not provoke the Empress or Divine Range." Yes. The group of emptiness boundary martial gods immediately obeyed the order and left. When the void boundary heavenly venerate was the only one left in the hall, Xueqi's figure appeared beside him. Xueqi's face was pale, and his eyes were bloodshot. He said in a cold voice, "Something is wrong. Why didn't the Origin Court investigate the Void Boundary Palace?" The Void Boundary Heavenly Venerate shook his head and said, "I don't know. Maybe they are busy with the new sovereign. The order of the Kunlun Origin Court is already in chaos. They are too busy to deal with it. They want to establish the sovereign first before sweeping away all the heretics." He looked up at Xueqi and asked seriously, "Are you sure that Zhou Xuanji will not deal with you after becoming the sovereign?" He didn't know much about Zhou Xuanji. But in his eyes, Zhou Xuanji was undoubtedly an extremely powerful existence. He was decisive in killing and even dared to contradict the sovereign. Would such a proud son of heaven tolerate Xueqi's existence? Not only did Xueqi look exactly like Zhou Xuanji, but he had also threatened to eliminate Zhou Xuanji. If he were Zhou Xuanji, the first thing he would do after becoming the sovereign would be to eliminate Xueqi. "Don't worry, I know him," Xueqi said, shaking his head. Xueqi shook his head. Then he changed the topic and coldly snorted, "Beast Sovereign is too vicious. We must destroy the evil Sky Divine Range before he leaves. Let's see if he will still pursue his great Tao." The Void Boundary Heavenly Venerate nodded upon hearing this. Inside the Emperor Sword Divine Range, Zhou Xuanji stood by the lake and taught Zhou Tanhua. He was giving pointers to the Great Li Divine Suppressor technique. Zhou Shaoxian was practicing swordsmanship not far away. She looked like a female immortal waving her sword on the lake. Her posture was elegant and full of celestial aura. The scene was harmonious, like a painting. Zhou Tanhua opened his eyes and asked, "Father, will you create a new cultivation technique after becoming the sovereign? I feel that although the Greatly Divine Suppressor technique's avatar ability is exquisite, its strength is only on par with the main body. You need to create a better cultivation technique." Zhou Xuanji found it funny and asked, "Why? You already looked down on the Greatly Divine Suppressor technique?" This kid was indeed powerful. The Greatly Divine Suppressor technique had already reached the 4th level. He could break through to the 5th level at any time. Everyone in Emperor Sword Court thought that he would be as powerful as his father. "No, I feel that your aura has changed. It seems that you have cultivated a new cultivation technique," Zhou Tanhua said with a smile. Zhou Tanhua said with a smile full of confidence. Zhou Xuanji said with a smile that wasn't quite a smile, "Kid, your senses are very sharp. I wonder if it's innate or acquired." This kid's growth rate was visible to the naked eye. He was getting stronger almost every day. When Zhou Xuanji became the sovereign, he could let Zhou Tanhua take the position of range master with peace of mind. "They are all sovereign's inheritances, but compared to you, father, they are definitely far inferior," Zhou Tanhua said, scratching his head with a smile. Zhou Tanhua scratched his head and smiled. Then, he became a little shy. At this moment, strands of red dust chi appeared in the air above their heads, quickly condensing into a red hole. Then, Mortal Sovereign and Xian Xianghua stepped out of it. "Mother!" Zhou Tanhua cried out excitedly and immediately rushed over. Mortal Sovereign came to Zhou Xuanji's side in a flash. She stared into Zhou Xuanji's eyes and asked, "Have you had any contact with Sovereign Kong Shang during this time?" Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "He doesn't hate me. How could I have any contact with him?" "Sovereign Kong Shang has fallen," Mortal Sovereign said in a low voice, her eyes cold. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji was stunned. "Sovereign Kong Shang has fallen? How is this possible? He was a sovereign. And even if he had fallen, how could there be no movement?" Could it be that Sovereign Kongshang was killed outside the Kunlun origin court? Zhou Xuanji's sword-like eyebrows furrowed as he fell into deep thought. How strong was the existence that could kill Sovereign Kongshang? I went to visit Sovereign Kongshang. His independent plane was destroyed. His body was left in the cave, intact. But his soul had been taken away, and all his divine energy had been sucked away. Mortal Sovereign's face was solemn. There was a hint of uneasiness in her voice. Chapter 864. His body was unharmed, but his soul was extracted? Zhou Xuanji's brow furrowed even tighter. He was even more astonished. From the looks of it, there were only two possibilities. One was that Sovereign Kongshang deliberately left his body. The other was that he encountered an enemy far stronger than him and had no power to resist. The former was still okay, but the latter was unimaginable. Sovereign Kongshang was a sovereign, and a famous one in history. His strength was unfathomable and unpredictable. An existence that could kill him. Just thinking about it made people shudder. Then why are you looking for me? Zhou Xuanji looked up and asked. He had no friendship with Sovereign Kongshang. It didn't matter if he died. Sovereign Hong Chen stared at him and said, "Have you forgotten that you will soon become a sovereign? The mysterious existence who killed Sovereign Kongshang might attack you." Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "The other party did not harm the Kunlun origin court. It's either a personal grudge, or he is only targeting the sovereigns." It was impossible for him not to feel pressured, but he had to stay calm. He couldn't be afraid before even seeing the enemy. Now, the other party seemed invincible and invincible. But when Zhou Xuanji became a great sovereign lord, it was still unknown who would be the winner. He had encountered such an invincible enemy at every stage of his growth. "I will remind you to be careful," Sovereign Hong Chen said softly. Autarch Crimson Dust said softly. With these words, she vanished from where she stood. Xian Xianghua and Zhou Tanhua landed in front of Zhou Xuanji. "What did the sovereign say to you?" Xian Xianghua asked curiously. She had always wanted to know the relationship between Zhou Xuanji and Sovereign Hong Chen. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. He and Sovereign Hong Chen weren't communicating telepathically. Why didn't the others hear it? He shook his head and said with a smile, "Nothing. You have already reached Origin Fusion Divine Lord? How did you cultivate?" Although he and Xian Xianghua's exterminating divine eyes were connected, it had only been a short time. She had already reached Origin Fusion Divine Lord by leaps and bounds. There must be other reasons. I have already become half a mortal god. It won't be long before I become a complete mortal god. At that time, you can leave the Emperor Sword Divine Range if you want. I will help you guard the Emperor Sword Divine Range. Xian Xianghua said excitedly. She rubbed her hands, looking eager. It was as if she couldn't wait to help Zhou Xuanji take the position of Range Master. After all, she had the heart of a powerhouse and wanted to be independent. She already knew that Zhou Xuanji had become the first candidate to become the sovereign. In the future, the Emperor Sword Divine Range would naturally need someone new to shoulder the heavy responsibility. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and said with a smile, "Oh, you want to be the Range Master, then what about your son? Your son is now the supernova of the Kunlun Origin Court, just like me back then." Hearing this, Xian Xianghua turned to look at Zhou Tanhua with a surprised expression. Did this kid's cultivation catch up again? Zhou Tanhua smiled shyly and said, "I still can't compare to you." Xian Xianghua curled her lips and was instantly displeased. She pinched Zhou Tanhua's ear and snorted, "Brat, do you know how hard your mother has been cultivating recently? How did you catch up with her? It seems like you inherited your father's talent perfectly." Sigh, should I be happy or disappointed? She was both angry and amused. She should be happy that her son was so powerful. But she was also a person who was unwilling to be left alone. Forget it. I'll just be the branch master's mother. Xian Xianghua sighed inwardly. The former number one in the northern wilderness region was at a loss. The idea of being the sole ruler in her heart began to collapse. Zhou Tanhua said seriously, "I'm still too young. Although my cultivation has improved quickly, I don't have much experience. Give the position of the range master to my mother. I will learn from her." He really didn't have much desire for status and power. He even found it troublesome. Every time he thought of how many creatures there were in the Emperor's Sword Divine Range and how many powers there were, he would have a headache. Humph! Does your mother need you to give in? Xian Xianghua said disdainfully, twisting Zhou Tanhua's ear half a circle. Zhou Xuanji glared at her and scolded with a smile. Your son has grown up. You can't bully him like this in public. Xian Xianghua was disdainful, but she still obediently let go. Only in front of Zhou Xuanji would she be obedient. Zhou Shaoxian flew over and hugged Xian Xianghua's arm. She giggled and said, Aunt Xian, have you learned any powerful divine abilities? Teach me. Teach me. Let's go, little girl. Xian Xianghua hooked her nose and said with a chuckle. The two women left hand in hand and quickly disappeared into the horizon. Zhou Tanhua sighed helplessly and said, Father, my sister is my mother's biological daughter, right? Zhou Xuanji glared at him and scolded, Get lost, hurry up and cultivate. You must become an Origin Fusion Divine Lord within 100 years. If you can't do it, you will stay in the Emperor's Sword Divine Range for the rest of your life. Zhou Tanhua smiled bitterly upon hearing this. 100 years. This is going to trap me to death. After Xian Xianghua's return, the Emperor's Sword Divine Range became restless. This woman fought with people everywhere. Except for Zhou Xuanji, no one in the Emperor's Sword Divine Range was her opponent. Even if everyone joined forces, they still wouldn't be able to defeat her. Therefore, she began to challenge the surrounding divine ranges. In less than 3 years, she had defeated dozens of divine ranges in the vicinity. Xian Xianghua's name also began to spread. She even called herself the Devil Sovereign. No matter how she won, whether it was because of Zhou Xuanji's fame or not, she had already become famous. Zhou Xuanji learned of this news while he was cultivating. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He used his divine will to probe Xian Xianghua's cultivation. To his surprise, she was constantly improving in battle. It seemed that the cultivation technique passed down by mortal sovereign was amazing. He didn't interfere and let Xian Xianghua do as she pleased. On this day, the Void Boundary Palace began to move. They mobilized their army to attack the Evil Sky Divine Range. This war came quickly and sensationally. Countless creatures threw themselves into the war. Many divine ranges could hear the commotion. Zhou Xuanji remained unmoved after receiving the news. Chang Xiyan asked hesitantly, The Void Boundary Palace has enmity with us, and the Evil Sky Divine Range is our old friend. Are we not going to make a move? Although she was loyal to Zhou Xuanji, the Evil Sky Divine Range was her hometown after all. Zhou Xuanji replied without opening his eyes, Beast Sovereign hasn't made a move. Chang Xiyan immediately furrowed her brow when she heard this. That's right. Why hasn't Beast Sovereign appeared? Could this be a conspiracy? Chang Xiyan asked nervously. She carefully recalled the details of this war. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. Zhou Xuanji continued, Just wait and see. Beast Sovereign will appear. At that time, he will definitely shock the Kunlun Origin Court. The reason why he dared to say this was that he had seen Beast Sovereign leave the Kunlun Origin Court. He even appeared in Sovereign Kong Shang's independent plane. His whereabouts were very secretive. In his opinion, Beast Sovereign must have something to do with Sovereign Kong Shang's death. Perhaps there was a mysterious and powerful existence plotting against the Kunlun Origin Court. After all, Sovereign Wu Zhou had also said that he had enemies outside the Kunlun Origin Court. Chang Xiyan wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, she chose to leave. Zhou Xuanji suddenly opened his eyes. The corner of his mouth rose as he murmured, Very good, you are actually plotting against me. You will regret it. Chapter 865. Zhou Xuanji saw Beast Sovereign appear around the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. He was shrouded in black qi, hiding his true appearance. Beast Sovereign seemed to be looking for something. He kept wandering around the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. If not for Zhou Xuanji's powerful exterminating divine eyes, he might not have been able to see him. At least, the guards of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range did not notice his appearance. After a long while, Beast Sovereign left. He didn't take anything with him, nor did he leave any traces. Zhou Xuanji, who was in the palace, noticed his murderous intent. This fellow was already eyeing the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. Originally, I didn't want to be your enemy. However, if you want to harm Emperor Sword Divine Range, then don't bother about me. Zhou Xuanji muttered to himself. He had already repaid the kindness that the evil Sky Divine Range had given him. He didn't feel the slightest bit guilty facing Beast Sovereign. He had saved the evil Sky Divine Range and Beast Sovereign. The debt of gratitude had been repaid. If they wanted to start a war, then so be it. After that, Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. The battle between the Void Boundary Palace and the evil Sky Divine Range continued. The Origin Court didn't intervene, as if they didn't know about it. All the Divine Ranges were paying attention to this matter. Most of them were curious. After all, the Void Boundary Palace was under the jurisdiction of the Origin Court, which was equivalent to the Imperial Court of the mortal world. The evil Sky Divine Range was just a city. Could it be that Beast Sovereign had offended the Origin Court? The news of Beast Sovereign being imprisoned by the 12 Law Ancestors was quickly dug out. The news of Zhou Xuanji rescuing Beast Sovereign was also spread by some people, causing an uproar in the Kunlun Origin Court. The Void Boundary Hall's Void Boundary Emperors, Void Boundary Gods, Void Boundary War Gods, and Void Boundary Heavenly Venerables came from different divine ranges. In a short period of time, there were hundreds of divine ranges attacking the evil Sky Divine Range. In the past, the evil Sky Divine Range was so overbearing that it had made countless enemies. Now that the Origin Court's Void Boundary Palace was attacking them, those enemies naturally came to beat them when they were down. The successive defeats of the evil Sky Divine Range caused the enemies to surround the evil Sky Divine Range. At first glance, the entire starry sky was filled with the figures of people fighting. In the void outside the Emperor Sword Divine Range, a young man in blue stood with a curved sword in his hand. He shouted, "Zhou Xuanji, come out and fight." As his voice fell, he unleashed the aura of his Origin Fusion Divine Lord Seven Lights. Boom! The surrounding space twisted as if it was being roasted by a high temperature. After a few moments, a figure flew out from the Emperor Sword Divine Range. It was Xian Xianghua. "Humph! You want to challenge my husband? Are you qualified?" Xian Xianghua raised her palm, and the qi of the mortal world condensed into a heavenly demon. It was as tall as a world, and it slapped out. The blue-clothed youth frowned and quickly raised his sword to block the attack. Meanwhile, in the cultivation palace, Zhou Xuanji was communicating with Little Sovereign. "Tese, your little wife is really fierce, aggressive and ambitious. Not bad, not bad." During this time, more than one person had come to challenge Zhou Xuanji, but they were all repelled by Xian Xianghua and Zhou Tanhua. The Demon Sovereign and the Small Sword Emperor were already rather famous. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, "Don't bother about her. Tell me, does my energy technique work?" Recently, he had been creating a new cultivation method of his own. Using the greatly divine suppressor art and the world Buddha art as the foundation, he created his own divine technique. Heavenly Separation Saint Suppressing Yuan Slaughtering Art. At first glance, it was obvious that the name was randomly created. The Heavenly Distant Saint Suppressing Origin Slaughtering Art is not bad, but it requires a great fortune to accelerate its growth. You opened it with the origin of your soul. If you want to create it directly, you will need an even stronger divine power. Let's go. It seems like we have to absorb another origin rule. It seems that we have to absorb another origin law. Little Sovereign touched his chin and said in a hesitant tone. Zhou Xuanji's eyes lit up as he asked, "Where is it?" "There is an independent plane outside the Kunlun Origin Court. It is a place of inheritance left by a sovereign. It might be able to cultivate a sovereign candidate in the future. But since you need it, I will give it to you first," Little Sovereign replied helplessly. Little Sovereign replied helplessly. He felt that he had fallen into a pit. Why did he start to obey this kid now? Does he think of this kid as his son? If Zhou Xuanji knew what he was thinking, he would definitely go berserk. "How much do you know about such a place of inheritance?" Zhou Xuanji's eyes lit up as he asked curiously. He was trying to hold back his excitement. "If I can absorb a few origin laws, wouldn't I become extremely powerful?" Little Sovereign glared at him and scolded with a smile. "Greedy. Are you ready? We can go now." Zhou Xuanji nodded and immediately disappeared. After leaving the Emperor Sword Divine Range, he saw that Xian Xianghua and the young man in blue were still fighting. Even if her cultivation was inferior to the other party, Xian Xianghua was still very strong. She wasn't injured. The mortal qi was indeed powerful. It could corrode the enemy's divine power. Zhou Xuanji's eyes narrowed as he cast the suppressing the universe. He focused his mind on the young man in blue, accurately locking on to him. The young man in blue paused. Xian Xianghua followed suit and slapped him with her palm. There was a loud bang. The young man in blue was sent flying back, vomiting blood. Xian Xianghua was about to follow up with another attack when he suddenly shattered the void and disappeared into the turbulence of time and space. Xian Xianghua was stunned. She cursed, gritting her teeth. He escaped. At the same time, in the turbulence of time and space, Zhou Xuanji grabbed the young man in blue, lifted him by the shoulder and flew with him. The young man in blue looked up in horror. When he saw Zhou Xuanji, his expression changed drastically. How can it be? He was shocked by Zhou Xuanji's strength. Facing Zhou Xuanji, he felt that he was facing his ancestor. The next time you come to the Emperor's Sword Divine Range, you will die, Zhou Xuanji said calmly, looking straight ahead. After speaking, he threw the young man in blue into the turbulence of time and space, into the unknown universe. Zhou Xuanji continued to move forward. He took out the Lesser Supreme Sword as Little Sovereign's soul emerged. Use your Absolute Time Realm with the Absolute Time Realm, instructed Little Sovereign. Zhou Xuanji immediately did as he was told. With a thought, he directly entered the Absolute Time Realm. With the Absolute Time Realm, he could easily enter the Absolute Time Realm through the turbulence of time and space. The Absolute Time Realm wasn't the only and fixed existence. It was more like a manifestation of a realm. Meditate and keep chanting the Great Phoenix Ruins realm. At the same time, spread out your divine will, continued Little Sovereign. Little Sovereign continued. He closed his eyes and began to mobilize his soul power. Great Phoenix Ruins realm? Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. He felt that this name was familiar. He seemed to have seen it in the history pavilion of the Evil Sky Divine Range. However, he couldn't remember the specific information. He chanted the name again and again. His divine will spread out, covering the entire Absolute Time Realm. After about half an incense stick of time, a space-time crack suddenly appeared in front of him. Zhou Xuanji didn't need Little Sovereign's reminder to know that it was the Great Phoenix Ruins realm. He turned into a sword light and dove into it. When he landed again, he came to a cliff. Below him was a dense forest with undulating mountains. As far as the eye could see, celestial mist filled the air, resembling dragons and tigers. The sky was cloudless. The scenery was magnificent and refreshing. At first glance, the Great Phoenix Ruins realm didn't seem too special. Zhou Xuanji suddenly turned his head and saw a figure standing on the top of a high mountain next to him. His eyes widened as he said in a trembling voice, "How is this possible?" Chapter 866. Shen Yanxing, why is she here? Is she really still alive? Zhou Xuanji frowned as he looked at the figure on the top of the mountain. His face was a little gloomy. When he saw Shen Yanxing again, he was pleasantly surprised at first, but then he became vigilant. Shen Yanxing looked the same as before, but she was exuding an aura that made his heart palpitate. She was even more terrifying than mortal sovereign. This pair of sisters are amazing. They both have great opportunities. Little Sovereign sighed with emotion. Little Sovereign sighed with emotion, but his expression was a bit solemn. Shen Yanxing is very dangerous. Although she looked like a girl, she was no longer as playful and lively as before. Her face was cold and her eyes were filled with killing intent. She wasn't looking at Zhou Xuanji but at the depths of the Great Phoenix Ruins realm. It was unknown what she was looking at. Don't go there, I feel something wrong, Little Sovereign warned. Little Sovereign reminded, his eyes suddenly becoming sharp. He narrowed his eyes and whispered, "This aura is so familiar. I seem to have met it before." The more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. At this moment, Shen Yanxing suddenly turned around and looked at Zhou Xuanji and Little Sovereign. Before the two of them could come back to their senses, Shen Yanxing had already appeared in front of Zhou Xuanji. She used her hand as a knife and her fingertips stopped in front of his throat. "Hey, have we met somewhere?" Shen Yanxing asked, staring at Zhou Xuanji's face as if she wanted to remember something. Zhou Xuanji was just about to speak when Little Sovereign answered first. We haven't. We just accidentally broke into this place. Little Sovereign smiled, pretending to be calm. Zhou Xuanji was surprised. Could it be that Shen Yanqing has lost her memory, or has her body been possessed? An existence that can make Little Sovereign so flustered is definitely not a simple character. Really? I think I know him. I don't know why, but I actually like him. This feeling isn't good. I must kill him, Shen Yanqing said, staring at Little Sovereign with a faint smile. Shen Yanqing stared at Little Supreme Being with a smile that wasn't a smile. After that, she patted Little Supreme Being's soul with her right hand and directly dispersed it. Zhou Xuanji subconsciously dodged, but he was still slapped to the ground by Shen Yanqing's palm. Cracks began to appear on the mountain like a spider web. Just as Zhou Xuanji was about to stand up, Shen Yanqing stepped on his chest. Layers of black light appeared from the soles of her feet, covering his body. He wanted to stand up, but he couldn't move at all. Shen Yanqing looked down at him and sneered. You still want to escape? Your cultivation is only at Origin Fusion Divine Lord 8 realms, but your strength surpasses that of an ordinary Origin Source Sovereign. It's a pity that you're just a mortal in front of me. Previously, your Kunlun Origin Court Sovereign Kong Shang was killed by me. All of his supreme divine power belongs to me. Zhou Xuanji's pupils contracted. She killed Supreme Venerable Kong Shang? He took a deep breath, stared at Shen Yanqing, and said, Do you want to understand your relationship with me? With the overbearing strength displayed by Shen Yanqing, she could easily kill him, but she did not do so. This was enough to explain her inner thoughts. Speak. Shen Yanqing ordered expressionlessly as her right foot moved away. Zhou Xuanji didn't hesitate to tell them about his previous experience with Shan Tang and Shen Yanqing. He spoke very calmly and did not deliberately express anything. After he finished speaking, Shen Yanqing sneered. Looking for me? Did that stupid sister think she was amazing just because she became a mortal supremacy? She's nothing in front of us. Her gaze fell on Zhou Xuanji again, and her eyes flickered. She was considering whether to kill Zhou Xuanji. After a while, she smiled again. Her smile was very dangerous. Very well, then I will let you live, Shen Yanqing said with a smile. With a wave of her right hand, the black light patterns on Zhou Xuanji's body dissipated. Zhou Xuanji then stood up straight. Zhou Xuanji wasn't surprised. Instead he asked, Can you tell me why did you spare my life? Shen Yanqing brushed past him and walked to the front, looking at the horizon. That thing is coming out. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji was curious. What could make Shen Yanqing so concerned? Could it be that the sovereign of the Great Phoenix Ruins realm is still alive? From killing Supreme Venerable Kong Shang, Shen Yanqing seemed to be looking for a sovereign to absorb the sovereign's divine power. Shen Yanqing was lost in thought. She didn't say a word. Zhou Xuanji felt a strong sense of oppression, which made his hair stand on end. He didn't dare to act rashly. He had thought of all kinds of scenes of meeting Shen Yanqing, but he had never thought that he would be in such a sorry state. What has she become? Zhou Xuanji frowned. At the same time, he called out to Little Sovereign in his heart. Little Sovereign wouldn't be killed so easily. He still had a remnant soul in the sword. After an hour, Shen Yanqing suddenly disappeared. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. He was hesitating whether to escape or not. Just as this thought came to his mind, Shen Yanqing returned to him. She was holding a golden feathered rooster in her hand. It was as big as an eagle. She was clutching its neck. Its two eyes were bulging, filled with panic. This thing is transformed from the origin of the crimson flame. It contains the most overbearing energy in the world. After countless years, it has become a spirit. Now, it has the cultivation of a great sovereign, Shen Yanqing introduced. Shen Yanqing introduced with a playful expression, which made Zhou Xuanji's heart twitch. Great sovereign. Someone as strong as Great Sovereign is being held in her hand like a chicken? This is too exaggerated. Zhou Xuanji was extremely curious. How can Shen Yanqing cultivate to such a level? Could it be that she has traveled through time far longer than Shen Tang? Shen Yanqing threw the golden feathered rooster to Zhou Xuanji and said, I will leave this guy to you. You can't let him escape, let alone let him die. The golden feathered rooster fell into Zhou Xuanji's arms and cried, I'm the Golden Crown Divine Lord. Don't humiliate me. I'm not a fowl. Shen Yanqing smiled disdainfully, deeply provoking the Golden Crown Divine Lord. However, his cultivation wasn't good enough. The Golden Crown Divine Lord could only endure it. The corner of Shen Yanqing's mouth rose as a green lotus appeared under her feet. She then left with Zhou Xuanji and the Golden Crown Divine Lord. Flying to the top of the Great Phoenix Ruins realm, she looked down. The mountains and rivers below were directly destroyed, destroying the world with a single glance. The Great Phoenix Ruins realm was like a broken dream, no longer existing. Zhou Xuanji only felt the scene in front of him change. Next they came to a blue and red universe. He carefully observed his surroundings and found that there was no Tao energy here. Instead, it was filled with another extremely powerful energy gas. There were no stars, no world. Everything was in a state of nothingness. The Golden Crown Divine Lord sent a voice transmission to Zhou Xuanji. Kid, you and I will join hands and escape together. If we are caught by this crazy woman, we will definitely die. Zhou Xuanji was indifferent. He didn't reply. With Shen Yanqing's ability, she could definitely spy on their voice transmission. Shen Yanqing snorted and said, "Escape? Not even 10 of you can escape." The Golden Crown Divine Lord trembled in fear. He didn't dare to speak anymore. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Where are we going?" Seeing his calm expression, the Golden Crown Divine Lord cursed in his heart. This little bastard is too adaptable to the wind. When Zhou Xuanji entered the Great Phoenix Ruins realm, he had already noticed it. His soul was smashed by Shen Yanqing, but this kid wasn't angry at all. He's too unyielding, a coward. Chapter 867. Let's go to the hiding place of the next sovereign. I'm hunting great sovereigns. My goal is revenge, Shen Yanqing replied. She stood in front, looking into the distance. No one knew what she was thinking. Zhou Xuanji became even more curious. Shen Yanqing is hunting great sovereigns. How strong are they? Zhou Xuanji remained silent. He couldn't imagine how a power far beyond that of a sovereign could be cultivated. The source law alone was broad and profound, giving him endless benefits. What kind of essence would a stronger power have? Zhou Xuanji fell into infinite reverie. The Golden Crown Divine Lord angrily rebuked, "You treacherous woman, you deserve to be hunted down." Shen Yanqing glanced at him, making him tremble in fear. He didn't dare to scold her anymore. Zhou Xuanji didn't laugh at him but concentrated on thinking. The rules seem to be unfathomable, but they are just the foundation. If you perform well, I can help you surpass great sovereigns in the future and compete for the path of a true expert. Shen Yanqing turned around and said with a smile. Shen Yanqing turned around and smiled. Her smile was thought-provoking, as if she was just joking. Zhou Xuanji didn't dare to chuckle. He did feel a murderous aura from her before. At least, it showed that Shen Yanqing had killing intent toward him. She wasn't as loyal to him as Shen Tang. He sighed in his heart. Back then, Shen Yanqing worshipped him very much. Things are still the same, but people have changed. They continued moving forward. Along the way, Zhou Xuanji was looking for a way to escape. Unfortunately, Shen Yanqing was keeping a close eye on him and the Golden Crown Divine Lord. They couldn't do anything at all. The Golden Crown Divine Lord also settled down. He was no longer stubborn. About 7 days had passed. They came to another independent plain. Here, the wind and sand were everywhere. The sky was the sea. It made people feel as if the world had turned upside down. The strong wind was blowing. The Golden Crown Divine Lord shivered. He couldn't help but shout, "There are no source laws here. Why don't you give up?" The sand here was very hard. Even with their physical strength, it was difficult to bear. Zhou Xuanji was feeling this special sandstorm. Shen Yanqing brought them here, which meant that there must be a great sovereign hiding here. Could it be that the special sandstorm here is the power of a great sovereign? Shen Yanqing flew while looking around. Suddenly, Zhou Xuanji felt a powerful divine will sweep past him. It was so powerful that it made him shudder. The Golden Crown Divine Lord's hair stood on end like a golden hedgehog. "Humph! How dare you barge into my world? You're courting death." A cold snort sounded out, and it was incomparably dull. Shen Yanqing immediately disappeared. Bang! Suddenly, there was a deafening explosion in front of them, only to see the sandstorm swirling up, a blinding light expanding rapidly. Xueqi activated his exterminating divine eyes and looked carefully. He could vaguely see two figures crossing each other in the bright light. Shen Yanqing and a mysterious Grand Supreme. This time, Shen Yanqing was unable to directly suppress the other party, and the two sides were locked in battle. Xueqi and the Golden Crown Divine Lord quickly stepped back. The might of the battle made them shudder in fear. If Shen Yanqing started a war in front of them, they would probably be wiped out in an instant. Could there be such a huge gap in the strength of Grand Sovereigns? Xueqi asked with gritted teeth. His words almost made Golden Crown Divine Lord vomit blood. He roared. Are you looking down on me? If it weren't for that bitch, I would have killed you with a slap. Her opponent is a tough one. It looks like she's going to lose. Having heard this, Xueqi was not surprised. If Shen Yanqing died, could they escape? No. This Grand Sovereign would kill them to vent his anger. Golden Crown Divine Lord was also terrified. Shen Yanqing alone gave him a headache. If there was an even more terrifying existence, wouldn't they be dead for sure? No. I can't sit still and wait for death. Golden Crown Divine Lord gritted his teeth. He suddenly looked back at Xueqi. His eyes widened as he transmitted his voice. Quickly pour your supreme divine power into my body and help me break the seal. We must take this opportunity to escape. Xueqi frowned. He only hesitated for half a second before he slammed his palm on Golden Crown Divine Lord. He could endure it before, but he couldn't now. Shen Yanqing's aura was being suppressed. If this continued, she would lose without a doubt. As his supreme divine power entered Golden Crown Divine Lord's body, the golden feathers of Golden Crown Divine Lord fluttered. No way! Is this all you've got? Golden Crown Divine Lord cried in dissatisfaction. Xueqi wanted to strangle him. But things had already come to this. There was no point in arguing. Xueqi had no choice but to use the sword fusion technique. His aura soared as the violent and boundless supreme divine power wantonly rushed into Golden Crown Divine Lord's body. Oh, so cool! Golden Crown Divine Lord cried in a strange voice. Xueqi felt goosebumps all over his body. This guy. He really deserves a beating. Little girl, you dare to have killing intent towards me with such little strength? Today I will suck your soul. You have no chance to regret it. The dull voice sounded again. His words were filled with bone-chilling killing intent, dropping the temperature of this independent plane to the freezing point. Boom! 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 The entire world was exploding. So was Golden Crown Divine Lord's body. Xueqi's supreme divine power was trying to break his seal. But Shen Yanqing's divine power was too strong. Xueqi's supreme divine power couldn't break through at all. He frowned and said in a deep voice, No, I can't help you. Trash. Golden Crown Divine Lord was flustered and exasperated. He immediately cursed Xueqi. Xueqi's eyes turned cold when he heard this. He immediately reversed the technique and began to absorb Golden Crown Divine Lord's divine power. Golden Crown Divine Lord's expression changed drastically. He furiously cursed, Brat! You dare to offend your superior? Xueqi laughed. This guy must be a fool. Xueqi didn't stop. Instead, he sped up the absorption. His cultivation began to grow rapidly. He had wanted to do this for a long time. Since Golden Crown Divine Lord was willing to help him, he wouldn't stand on ceremony. Shen Yanqing was still fighting over there while Golden Crown Divine Lord kept cursing. As time went by, his cursing became less and less confident. Until the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn. I was wrong. Bro. Dad. Grandpa. Please forgive me. Golden Crown Divine Lord wailed. He had become unprincipled. He was like a different chicken compared to his previous arrogant self. Xueqi ignored him and continued to absorb. He planned to take this opportunity to break through to Origin Fusion Divine Lord Jiuming. Golden Crown Divine Lord became more and more desperate. It's over. I'm going to die in this kid's hands. How unfair. Unfair. He roared hysterically in his heart. His eyes seemed to be a little moist. At this moment, Shen Yanqing suddenly appeared in front of them. She wrapped them with her divine power and quickly took them away from this world. Want to escape? It's not that easy. The dull voice snorted. Immediately, Xueqi felt a horrifying murderous intent coming from behind. It made him feel like he was in a cold cellar. His invincible saint body stiffened. Boom! Xueqi felt a heavy blow from behind. He immediately fainted. Before his consciousness disappeared, he vaguely heard Golden Crown Divine Lords cursing. I'm not convinced. Chapter 868. Xueqi's consciousness slowly woke up. He felt powerless and a breeze was flowing around him. He opened his eyes, and what entered his field of vision were countless corpses that floated about like stars, densely packed and innumerable. His eyes widened. He subconsciously wanted to move, but he couldn't move at all. Xueqi glanced in other directions and found that this universe was very strange. The space was like water. He could clearly feel the flow of space. It seemed that as long as he exerted force, the surrounding space would explode. He suddenly caught a glimpse of the Golden Crown Divine Lord. His wings had been broken. He looked like a corpse. He also saw Shen Yanxing. This girl's clothes were ragged, her hair was messy, and her body was covered in blood. What the hell happened? Xueqi frowned and thought in doubt. He couldn't absorb Dao energy here. Fortunately, his Tianxia map stored a massive amount of supreme divine power, which was enough for him to recover. After half an hour, Xueqi regained his mobility. He was about to leave. Where are you going? Shen Yanxing's voice suddenly drifted into Xueqi's ears. His body instantly stiffened. He looked back with difficulty and saw Shen Yanxing with disheveled hair appear behind him. Her cold eyes were staring at him. Are you okay? Xueqi asked. His expression was calm. He didn't panic at all. Shen Yanxing coldly said, I almost died, but that guy is really dead. She raised her right hand and pointed. Xueqi followed her gaze. He saw a headless corpse 100 meters away. It was badly mutilated and looked very miserable. Xueqi frowned. He thought that Shen Yanxing had been defeated. He didn't expect that the great sovereign had already died. What's going on? He looked at Shen Yanxing in surprise and found that the woman's aura was weak like a candle that was about to be extinguished. Humph, what are you thinking? No one can get close to me. This guy underestimated me. I will use the divine ability mutual destruction and then use the rebirth technique, Shen Yanxing said with a contemptuous smile. Shen Yanxing smiled contemptuously. As soon as she finished speaking, she coughed. At this moment, she looked so weak. Xueqi had a strong hunch that if he made a move, he would definitely be able to kill her. However, he suppressed this idea. Shen Yanxing was also testing Xueqi. She wasn't sure and could only bet on her past with Xueqi. I want to go back to the Kunlun Origin Court. Can you show me the way? I can help you recover, and from then on, we don't owe each other anything. Xueqi looked into her eyes and said seriously. He had promised to bring Shen Yanxing back to the Kunlun Origin Court, but in the end, he failed to keep his promise and caused Shen Yanxing to encounter an accident. He had always felt guilty. This was also the reason why he could face Shen Yanxing calmly. Okay, I'll go back and see my poor sister. Immediately afterward, she closed her eyes and collapsed into Xueqi's arms. She raised her right hand with difficulty and pointed at the Golden Crown Divine Lord. She said with a trembling voice, "Take him and leave this place." Before she could finish her sentence, she fainted. Xueqi furrowed his brow and sighed softly. He took out a white robe and put it on Shen Yanxing before sucking the Golden Crown Divine Lord over. He held Shen Yanxing in his right hand and the Golden Crown Divine Lord in his left hand as he quickly left. Not long after, he realized that he was unable to enter the Absolute Time Realm directly. The space here was very strange. It looked soft, but it couldn't be completely penetrated. He began to search for the weak space. If they could fall into this place, there must be a space-time node that could lead them out. However, it took him half a year to search for it. Shen Yanxing and the Golden Crown Divine Lord hadn't woken up yet. They were both in a comatose state. Xueqi stopped and began cultivating on the spot. Since he couldn't find it, he could only become stronger and look for an opportunity. Another 3 months passed. Shen Yanxing finally woke up. She opened her eyes and found herself wearing a loose white robe, floating in the void. You are finally awake. Zhou Xuanji's voice came from the side. There was a hint of resentment in his tone. This girl fainted without saying anything, making him waste so much time here. How could he not be resentful? Why haven't you gone out yet? Are you so weak? Shen Yanqing asked with a frown. Zhou Xuanji's liver ached when he heard this. What do you mean I'm so weak? Shen Yanqing coldly snorted and said, if you want to leave this place, you don't have to break the space but absorb it. As soon as she said this, Zhou Xuanji's eyes lit up. Absorb space? Why didn't I think of it before? He didn't answer her. Instead, he began to feel the surrounding space and absorb the space that was as soft as water. After half an hour, Zhou Xuanji suddenly opened his eyes. Suppressing the pleasant surprise, he exclaimed, I found it! He suddenly stood up. Purple light burst out from his eyes as he took in the entire universe. In the next second, he, Shen Yanqing, and Golden Crown Divine Lord appeared in the turbulence of space and time. He curiously asked, what was that place just now? Why can't those corpses be erased? Shen Yanqing coldly snorted and said, those corpses have long been turned into the eyes of the array. This space is a domain created by me. Those corpses are all source sovereigns. There are hundreds of great sovereigns among them. Their vast divine power is gathered together. This is a peerless array that no one can break into. Now, this array belongs to you. You have to thank me. Zhou Xuanji hesitated and asked, why can I absorb it so easily? If he could, so could other great sovereigns. In this way, this array was like an empty shell. That's because I agreed in my heart that you could absorb it. Otherwise, you would have already broken out, Shen Yanqing snorted disdainfully. Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brows upon hearing this. He suppressed his anger and asked, in other words, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape unless you woke up and agreed in your heart? Then why didn't you agree before? He finally understood that this girl was lying to him. She deliberately coaxed him to stay here? Shen Yanqing proudly smiled and said, why do you care so much? This array is called the 10,000 Venerables God-slaying array. This kind of good fortune makes you wait a little longer. What's wrong? Sophistry. Zhou Xuanji took a deep breath and flew forward with Shen Yanqing and Golden Crown Divine Lord. He swept out his divine will, searching for the aura of the Kunlun Origin Court. Shen Yanqing was in his arms, staring at his side face thoughtfully. As for Golden Crown Divine Lord, he was still in a coma. I suddenly feel that I might have liked you before, Shen Yanqing suddenly said. Shen Yanqing suddenly said. Her eyes were intriguing. Zhou Xuanji didn't answer. He just looked ahead. Little chicken, don't sleep. I don't need you now. You can say your last words. Shen Yanqing changed the topic and said with a soft smile. Golden Crown Divine Lord immediately opened his eyes and struggled in Zhou Xuanji's hands. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Since my spiritual wisdom was born, I haven't really left the great Phoenix Ruins realm. Just treat me as a pitiful worm. Let me go. Golden Crown Divine Lord cried and begged. He felt extremely wronged. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. It turns out that this guy is just a paper tiger. But he can pretend for so long. It's amazing. Shen Yanqing said with a playful smile. So what? There are many pitiful worms that died in my hands. Chapter 869. After being tricked by Shen Yanqing, Zhou Xuanji was very angry at first, but his anger quickly disappeared. No matter what, it was a blessing in disguise. It was just that the 10,000 God-slaying formation was created by Shen Yanqing. Perhaps this girl had left behind some tricks, so he had to be careful. Seeing Shen Yanqing teasing Golden Crown Divine Lord, he couldn't laugh. He couldn't see through the current Shen Yanqing. God knew when she would make a move on him. They fooled around for a while. Zhou Xuanji suddenly sensed the aura of the Kunlun Origin Court. He immediately flew over with Shen Yanqing and Golden Crown Divine Lord. The Golden Crown Divine Sovereign shouted, Is that Kunlun Origin Court really that good? Is it worth it for you to rush back so quickly? His top priority was to find a way to escape from the clutches of Shen Yanqing. In the end, this guy actually cooperated with Shen Yanqing, which made him very angry. Zhou Xuanji did not reply but stared ahead. The Divine Lord with the golden crown pouted his lips and did not say anything else. The corners of Shen Yanqing's mouth raised, but she didn't say anything. The rest of the journey became quiet. About 3 days passed. Zhou Xuanji finally entered the Kunlun Origin Court. The familiar Tao energy and spiritual qi made him take a deep breath. This is the Kunlun Origin Court? How weak. The Golden Crown Divine Lord snorted disdainfully. He raised his head high and looked at the starry sky. Zhou Xuanji didn't bother to pay attention to him. Instead, he looked at Shen Yanqing and said, "Next, do you want to find a place to recuperate or follow me?" Shen Yanqing had already been to the Kunlun Origin Court. Supreme Kong Shang was killed by her without anyone knowing. Although she was seriously injured now, she was definitely not someone the Kunlun Origin Court could plot against. Go. It won't be long before you come looking for me. Shen Yanqing waved her hand. With a flip of her right hand, a floating island appeared in her palm. With a gentle wave, the floating island rose up and quickly grew larger. She carried the Golden Crown Divine Lord and flew into it. Zhou Xuanji looked at the massive island that was tens of thousands of meters tall and could not help but click his tongue. This lass was too arrogant. You're seriously injured, yet you're not hiding. On second thought, perhaps this island could defend against the attacks of a supreme being. However, it was impossible. If she was really that powerful, why would Shen Yanqing be so embarrassed in the face of that mysterious supreme being? He flew toward the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. This place wasn't far from the Kunlun Origin Court and was close to the void boundary. In less than half an hour, Zhou Xuanji returned to the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. During the time he was away, the Emperor's Sword Divine Range did not encounter any danger. Zhou Xuanji found Chang Xian and asked her about what had happened during this time. He had been worried that Beast Sovereign would attack the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. However, Chang Xian told him that the Evil Sky Divine Range had already been defeated. The entire Divine Range had been flattened and collapsed. It was very miserable. As for Beast Sovereign, he never showed up from beginning to end. Now, the Evil Sky Divine Range no longer existed. Its name had been erased from the history of the Kunlun Origin Court. Most of the original living beings of the Evil Sky Divine Range had died, and the remaining ones were hiding like street rats. Master, the Void Boundary Palace's target doesn't just seem to be the Evil Sky Divine Range. They have begun to attack other super divine ranges. It seems that the Origin Court is going to purge them. Chang Xian said with a frown. She had no feelings for the Void Boundary Palace. Zhou Xuanji asked, "Is there any movement from the Sovereign Divine Ranges?" Chang Xian shook her head and said, "No, they are all recuperating and cultivating in seclusion." Zhou Xuanji fell into deep thought. After a while, "Go contact the Tianyi Divine Range and invite Nanmu Tianyi to come as a guest," Zhou Xuanji instructed. Zhou Xuanji instructed. Upon hearing this, Chang Xian nodded. He then waved his hand, motioning for Chang Xian to leave. When he was the only one left in the palace, he sighed and said, "Kunlun Origin Court. You think you are the highest existence, but you don't know that there are many terrifying existences lurking outside. Your fight is just a joke." He closed his eyes and began cultivating. After absorbing the divine power of Golden Crown Divine Lord, he was only one step away from Origin Fusion Divine Lord 9th Enlightenment. Once the breakthrough was successful, his strength would soar. 10 days later, Zhou Xuanji broke through to Origin Fusion Divine Lord 9th Enlightenment. He didn't need to go through the tribulation. Everything seemed so calm. Even the people inside the Emperor's Sword Divine Range didn't notice his breakthrough. He didn't walk out of the cultivation palace but continued to adjust the supreme divine power in his body. Until Nanmu Tianyi came to visit. The two gathered in a pavilion. Chang Xian prepared wine and dishes for the two to talk alone. Nanmu Tianyi exclaimed in admiration, "Origin Fusion Divine Lord 9th Enlightenment, how did you cultivate?" If it was in the past, he would definitely be amazed. But now, he felt that Zhou Xuanji's achievements were reasonable. After all, this kid would be the next sovereign. It's just a small opportunity. I want to ask you, what opportunity did you, young Heavenly Lord, and Wang Bao get? Did it come from outside the Kunlun Origin Court? The Kunlun Origin Court isn't at peace yet. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and asked with a smile. He had been thinking about this question before. Nanmu Tianyi's aura was very strange. It gave him the feeling that he was facing the energy outside the court. Each plane outside the court had different energy, and most of them were stronger than the Kunlun origin court. Nanmu Tianyi's aura was incompatible with the spiritual qi and Tao energy of the Kunlun origin court. He was constantly devouring the spiritual qi and Tao energy around him. Even if he tried his best to restrain himself, Zhou Xuanji could still clearly feel it. Did your opportunity also come from outside the Kunlun origin court? Nanmu Tianyi asked curiously. He carefully observed Zhou Xuanji and found that the kid's essence, qi, and spirit had changed significantly. Zhou Xuanji nodded and then told him about his experiences during this period of time. He hid his relationship with Shen Yanxing and only talked about his experiences. Nanmu Tianyi was dumbfounded after listening to him. Are there so many great sovereigns? Nanmu Tianyi was drenched in cold sweat. He felt conceited because of his breakthrough. But after listening to Zhou Xuanji, he realized that he was still a frog in the well. Zhou Xuanji continued, the recent actions of the void boundary and the disappearance of Beast Sovereign may be related to the outside world. As the range master of the sovereign range, not only must you be careful, but you also can't ignore it. It's best to ask the law ancestors what they mean. Don't be used by evil. Nanmu Tianyi solemnly nodded. The Kunlun origin court had experienced so many disasters during this period of time. He was also very worried that something bad would happen. Thinking of this, Nanmu Tianyi no longer had the mood to drink. He found an opportunity, got up and said, in that case, I will go find the 12 law ancestors now. Zhou Xuanji nodded, and Nanmu Tianyi disappeared from the building. It seems that his opportunity also told him something. Zhou Xuanji shook the wine glass and murmured to himself. Zhou Xuanji swirled the wine glass and mumbled to himself. His eyes fell on the surface of the wine in the glass, as though he was peeking into another world. After Nanmu Tianyi left, Zhou Xuanji continued to cultivate in the following days. Shen Yanxing didn't come to disturb him either. Everything fell into a state of tranquility. It seemed easy, but Zhou Xuanji felt the pressure. The peace was broken by Zhou Tanhua's visit. Chapter 870. Father, I have something to ask you. Hearing Zhou Tanhua's shout outside the hall, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and said, come in. Zhou Tanhua rarely took the initiative to disturb Ning Cheng's practice. But today, he was making a fuss. It seemed that there was really an urgent matter. Ever since Zhou Xuanji returned from outside the court, he had paid less attention to Zhou Tanhua. At this moment, he felt a little regretful. He wanted to nurture Zhou Tanhua into the range master of the Emperor Sword Divine Range. Zhou Tanhua pushed the door open, closed it, and quickly walked up to Zhou Xuanji. He hurriedly bowed and looked up, saying, Father, Mother went to find trouble with the mortal divine range. Zhou Xuanji heard him and immediately got up with his eyes wide open. What's going on? Is she crazy? Zhou Xuanji asked furiously. Xian Xianghua's cultivation was increasing day by day, but the mortal divine range was the sovereign divine range. How could she fight with the mortal divine range? Zhou Tanhua gritted his teeth and said, she said she wanted to collect the mortal qi. I wanted to stop her, but she used her exterminating divine eyes to stop me. By the time I broke free, she had already disappeared. Nonsense! Zhou Xuanji cried out before disappearing on the spot. Zhou Tanhua still wanted to chase after him, but he was shocked to find that he couldn't track his father's whereabouts at all. He had thought that he was strong enough. Even if he wasn't as strong as his father, he wasn't at a level where he couldn't catch up to him. But now, as expected, my cultivation is still not enough. Zhou Tanhua smiled bitterly. He immediately left and prepared to go into seclusion. The other side. Zhou Xuanji rushed toward the mortal divine range. At the same time, he activated the exterminating divine eyes, trying to establish a connection with Xian Xianghua. Their exterminating divine eyes were connected, but as Xian Xianghua became a mortal god, the connection between them also decreased. Not only Xian Xianghua, but even Zhou Xuanji was the same. They had an even more powerful force suppressing the god-exterminating eyes. Soon, Zhou Xuanji accurately sensed Xian Xianghua's aura. He immediately rushed forward. Right now, Xian Xianghua was fighting with 3 Essence Fusion Divine Lords. They all had the cultivation of Essence Fusion Divine Lord Erming. They surrounded Xian Xianghua, but they were unable to gain any advantage. In fact, they were even injured. Zhou Xuanji let out a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to rush over, a figure sped over. He glanced over and saw that it was Shen Yanqing. Her speed was very fast, and she quickly grabbed Xian Xianghua. Her left hand clasped Xian Xianghua's wrist, and with a wave of her right hand, the 3 Essence Fusion Divine Lords were killed and turned into ashes. What do you want? Zhou Xuanji angrily rebuked. He wanted to stop her, but Shen Yanqing pulled Xian Xianghua behind her. She sneered. You want to save your wife? Xian Xianghua was shocked. She wanted to struggle, but she found that she couldn't move, and she couldn't mobilize the mortal divine power in her body. She looked at Shen Yanqing in horror. Who was this woman? Don't mess around. I did save you before. Zhou Xuanji said with a deep voice, his eyes flashing with a cold light. If Shen Yanqing dared to harm Xian Xianghua, then he would no longer care about their past friendship. He would definitely kill Shen Yanqing in this life. When Shen Yanqing saw his expression, she couldn't help but curl her lips and snort. Do you have such feelings for my poor sister? Zhou Xuanji was silent and did not reply. He stared fixedly at her. Xian Xianghua was very confused. Who is this woman's sister? At this time, Shen Yanqing suddenly let go of Xian Xianghua and said to her with a smile, Your mortal god changed halfway. Your aura is not pure at all. It seems that you are related to my poor sister. After all, you both serve the same husband. That's why she can treat you with all her heart. As soon as she said this, Xian Xianghua's expression changed drastically. She subconsciously looked at Zhou Xuanji with a strange look in her eyes. She had always respected mortal sovereign and regarded him as her master. She didn't expect that the cold and powerful mortal sovereign would like Zhou Xuanji. No wonder. Xian Xianghua's expression became more and more strange. Her gaze made Zhou Xuanji feel pressured. He said in a deep voice, Shen Yanqing, what are you going to do? Are you trying to tease me? Tease you? Shen Yanqing burst into laughter as if she had heard the biggest joke in the world. Xian Xianghua looked for an opportunity and immediately fled behind Zhou Xuanji. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Shen Yanqing as the mortal qi exploded. Mortal sovereign Shen Tang appeared. She looked excited and wanted to hug Shen Yanqing. However, Shen Yanqing avoided her. Shen Yanqing grabbed mortal sovereign's wrist and said with a sneer, Poor thing, you finally came out. After cultivating for so long, why haven't you broken through to great sovereign lord? If you had come to me earlier, you might have been far stronger than you are now. This shows that Zhou Xuanji is more important than me in your heart. Mortal sovereign hurriedly explained, It's not like that, Yanqing, listen to me. Explain what? You just want to use your lack of strength as an excuse. Shen Yanqing said impatiently. She was furious when she saw mortal sovereign. She squeezed her right hand, causing mortal sovereign to frown. Zhou Xuanji said, We have the same root. Shut up. Shen Yanqing shouted. After that, she grabbed mortal sovereign's neck and threatened, If you dare to talk nonsense again, I will break her neck and make you regret it. Zhou Xuanji was speechless. Why did he feel like he was watching a melodramatic drama? Mortal sovereign couldn't break free from her grip. She was so powerful in the Kunlun origin court. But at this moment, in the hands of Shen Yanqing, she was like a defenseless mortal. She looked very weak. Without waiting for Zhou Xuanji to speak again, Shen Yanqing left with mortal sovereign, disappearing into thin air without leaving any aura behind. Zhou Xuanji turned around, looked at Xian Xianghua, and said seriously, Don't mess around in the future. Think about the situation just now. If you do it again, you will die. He felt that it was necessary to teach this woman a lesson. She was really getting more and more arrogant. She actually dared to challenge the sovereign divine range alone. Xian Xianghua asked with a smile that wasn't a smile, What if I meet your little lover next time? The corner of Zhou Xuanji's mouth twitched. Humph. Come back with me first, and then I will deal with you. Zhou Xuanji took Xian Xianghua into his arms and flew toward the Emperor's Sword Divine range. Xian Xianghua asked with a frown, What about mortal sovereign? Aren't you afraid that something bad will happen to her? They are sisters. If Shen Yanqing wanted to kill her, she would have done it just now. Why take her away? Zhou Xuanji replied indifferently. If Shen Yanqing really hated Mortal Sovereign, she would have made Mortal Sovereign suffer just now. But she didn't. She just captured her. Xian Xianghua nodded. She was full of curiosity about the relationship between Shen Yanqing and Mortal Sovereign. She began to ask Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji didn't hide anything. While flying toward the Emperor's Sword Divine Range, he told her about his experience in Anti-Kunlun. By the time they returned to the Emperor's Sword Divine Range, he had also finished telling the story. Women are really affectionate. Even time and space can't isolate their affection for you, Xian Xianghua said with a teasing smile. At the same time, she fell into deep thought. She could have what she had today because of the celestial devil rebirth technique passed down by her ancestors. And this technique was created by Mortal Sovereign. Everything was destined. Chapter 871. After returning to the Emperor's Sword Divine Range, Zhou Xuanji severely criticized Xian Xianghua. Xian Xianghua also realized her arrogance and promised not to challenge the Sovereign Divine Range again, unless she surpassed Origin Fusion Divine Lord. Zhou Xuanji was still worried. He made her promise not to provoke the Super Divine Ranges on her own and not to go in alone. Xian Xianghua hurriedly promised, but she seemed very perfunctory. Zhou Xuanji could not do anything to her and could only give up. After letting Xian Xianghua leave, he directly escaped out of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range to track down Shen Yanqing's whereabouts. Soon, he saw that the giant island that Shen Yanqing had taken out was still there. He immediately teleported over. After entering the huge island, he saw Golden Crown Divine Lord bathing in a lake. The golden pheasant hummed a song as it washed, looking very comical. Zhou Xuanji noticed that he did not have any divine energy in his body. Even so, he could still be so happy. It was really puzzling. Zhou Xuanji did not bother to talk to the Golden Crown Divine Lord and flew toward a massive black castle on the island. He could already hear Shen Yanqing's wild laughter, cruel and insane. He could even vaguely hear the sound of a whip being lashed. Zhou Xuanji's heart sank, and he immediately sped up. He quickly penetrated the stone wall and came to the palace where Shen Yanqing was. He stood on the stone beam and looked down. His expression instantly froze. Shen Yanqing held an iron whip in her hand and frantically whipped a stone man. This stone man was still wearing the clothes of mortal supremacy. Even though he was repeatedly whipped by the iron whip, the red clothes did not break. "You're here. Have you seen? This is the consequence of offending me." She didn't look at Zhou Xuanji above. Instead, she stared at the stone man. Zhou Xuanji's expression changed drastically and asked in a deep voice, "You turned your sister into this?" He immediately went in front of the golem and helped it block the iron whips. Shen Yanqing didn't wave the whip again. Instead, she asked with a faint smile, "What? Is your heart aching?" She came up to Zhou Xuanji and grabbed the cloth in front of his chest with her right hand as fast as lightning, pulling it back. Zhou Xuanji could only see darkness before his eyes. He could not control his body and fell into it. He fell into the endless darkness and looked back. He saw Shen Yanqing standing at the entrance of the cave looking down at him, smiling extremely coldly. "Damn it!" Zhou Xuanji struggled with all his might, but he could not mobilize the sovereign's divine power in his body. Plop! He fell to the ground in a sorry state. The hole above him suddenly disappeared, and he fell into complete darkness. He immediately activated the exterminating divine eyes and scanned the surroundings with purple light. There was nothing under the darkness. Even the space beneath his feet was transparent. He slowly turned around and looked behind him. His body suddenly stiffened, because he saw a figure. It was Autarch Crimson Dust. At this moment, Autarch Crimson Dust wasn't wearing any clothes and was in the middle of cultivating. His snow-white body and his fluttering black hair caused his heart to skip a beat, and he hurriedly retracted his gaze. "You were imprisoned here by her?" Zhou Xuanji asked with his back facing Mortal Sovereign. In the darkness, he could clearly hear Supreme Crimson Dust's breathing, and he could even feel her warmth. Supreme Crimson Dust didn't answer him. After a while, a soft body suddenly hugged him from behind, causing his body to stiffen even more. He frowned and asked, "What do you want to do?" He couldn't help but wonder if Supreme Hongchen had been bewitched by Shen Yanqing. "She wants to humiliate me by helping you become stronger." She doesn't know that I have this plan all along, Supreme Crimson Dust replied softly. Autarch Crimson Dust replied softly, his voice no longer as cold as it usually was. She began to pull Zhou Xuanji's clothes. He resisted instinctively, trying to avoid her. Don't move. Don't you want to break through to Origin Fusion Divine Lord 10 Enlightened? I will help you and help you become the sovereign of the Kunlun Origin Court. Anyway, I see that she is still alive. I have no regrets, Supreme Crimson Dust said softly, hugging Zhou Xuanji tightly. Just when Zhou Xuanji wanted to refuse, she suddenly covered his mouth, stood on her tiptoes and whispered in his ear. This is the cultivation method that you and I should have done. Are you really going to refuse? This is also a good thing for me. After all, you have the soul origin. As far as I am concerned, it is not a loss. She suddenly burst out her divine power of the mortal world, drowning Zhou Xuanji like warm water. An uncontrollable desire rose from the bottom of Zhou Xuanji's heart. His eyes burst out with purple light, illuminating the dark space. What's going on? Zhou Xuanji was horrified in his heart. He tried to suppress this desire but to no avail. Supreme Crimson Dust's hands then touched his chest, completely igniting the flame in his heart. Inside the hall, Shen Yanqing was sitting on a stone seat covered with animal skin. She supported her chin with her right hand. Her eyes flickered. No one knew what she was looking at. She had a strange smile on her face. She licked her lips and murmured, "Interesting." At this moment, Golden Crown Divine Lord's voice came from outside. "Bitch! I have already washed it. Do you want to stew or roast it? It's up to you." Golden Crown Divine Lord's tone was full of pride. He wasn't afraid of death at all. He even began to kick the gate of the Black Castle, shaking the Black Castle. Shen Yanqing let out a cold snort. With a wave of her right hand, a black shadow flew out of her sleeve and quickly flew out of the Black Castle. Ah! What are you doing? Bitch! You are crazy. You can kill me but you can't humiliate me. Ah! I'm going to kill you. Golden Crown Divine Lord's scream resounded. He was surrounded by black chi as his golden feathers were thrown away. In less than 10 breaths, he turned into a featherless chicken. His fleshy wings wrapped tightly around his body. He squatted on the ground, shivering. He was crying. He had lived for so long but had never suffered such humiliation. He was the Crimson Flame Origin. He lowered his head. His eyes were bloodshot as he gnashed his teeth and murmured, "Shen Yanqing, just you wait." Boom! A strong wind blew in his face, sending him flying backward while vomiting blood. His body was like a ball, rolling along the ground and crashing into the woods. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. A few days later, the Black Castle shook violently as a terrifying aura erupted. It was Zhou Xuanji. He had forcefully broken through to Origin Fusion Divine Lord 10 Enlightened. A horrifying pressure shrouded the entire island. Golden Crown Divine Lord, who was sleeping in the grass, suddenly opened his eyes. He cried out in shock. How is this possible? In his opinion, Zhou Xuanji's fate was the same as his, a prisoner. Why could Zhou Xuanji still break through? It's unfair. At the same time, inside the palace, Shen Yanqing nodded with satisfaction and said in amazement, "This method is very suitable for cultivation. I can use him as a cauldron for my cultivation in the future." Clang! A sword chi appeared out of thin air, tearing the space apart and creating a black crack. The sword chi rushed up and broke through the top of the castle. Next, Zhou Xuanji flew out of the black crack with Mortal Sovereign in his arms. He was wearing white clothes and a black robe wrapped around Mortal Sovereign's body. Mortal Sovereign was nestled in his arms. His eyes were closed as if he was sleeping. Chapter 872. Do you like this kind of cultivation method? Shen Yanqing asked with a smile, leaning back on the stone seat lazily. Zhou Xuanji said expressionlessly, "Did you do it?" He looked calm but he was helpless in his heart. He really couldn't control himself before. "I just did you a favor." "Why? You don't want to admit it after putting on your pants?" Shen Yanqing said with a sarcastic smile. Zhou Xuanji stared at her. Swords of light appeared around him, pointing at her, ready to attack at any time. "You are not my opponent. Don't make trouble for yourself," Shen Yanqing provoked. Shen Yanqing provoked, which made Zhou Xuanji narrow his eyes. At this time, mortal sovereign in his arms slowly opened her eyes and said, "Forget it." She looked at Shen Yanqing with gentle eyes and said, "Yanqing, no matter what, I am very happy now because I found you. I am relieved to see that you are stronger than me." Shen Yanqing snorted and said in a bad mood, "What are you talking about? You are happy for the man next to you. Look at you in his arms. You are really shameless. You can leave but he has to stay." With a wave of her right hand, mortal sovereign uncontrollably left Zhou Xuanji's arms. Zhou Xuanji wanted to catch her but he couldn't. Even if he had reached the Origin Fusion Divine Lord 10th Realm, he was helpless. Mortal sovereign quickly put on the black robe given by Zhou Xuanji. She looked back but she could no longer see Zhou Xuanji. She was directly sent out of the Black Castle. She frowned and could only watch the Black Castle getting farther and farther away from her. Not long after, she was sent to the depths of the universe by Shen Yanqing's supreme divine power. Inside the hall, Zhou Xuanji looked at Shen Yanqing with a calm expression and asked, "What do you want to do?" After breaking through to the Origin Fusion Divine Lord 10th Realm, Shen Yanqing was still unfathomable in his eyes. This unfathomable feeling made him uncontrollably nervous. He tried hard not to show this nervousness. He wanted to be calm and collected. "What do I want to do?" "Naturally, I want to do what you were doing before," Shen Yanqing said with a teasing smile. Shen Yanqing teased. Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but frown. He didn't take it seriously. He felt that Shen Yanqing was teasing him and mocking him. Shen Yanqing stopped smiling and asked, "Do you want to become a supreme being?" Zhou Xuanji nodded. There was nothing to hide about this. After all, he had not become the sovereign. "I'll be leaving soon. If you can become a sovereign, then I'll come back to find you. I'll have you accompany me to hunt grand sovereigns. I won't let you do it for nothing. I'll impart my cultivation technique to you. Before that, I have to leave. I'll leave the Scarlet Flame Essence to you. Take good care of it. I'll come back to inspect it." Shen Yanqing stood up and said slowly, "I'll leave this island in your care for the time being. This place is very suitable for cultivating supreme god force." As her voice fell, Shen Yanqing stepped down. Zhou Xuanji frowned. Just as he was about to speak, Shen Yanqing disappeared. He was stunned and spread out his divine sense to cover the entire island, but he could no longer capture Shen Yanqing's aura. She really left. Zhou Xuanji felt that everything was unreal. He was still thinking about how to get rid of Shen Yanqing, but he didn't expect her to leave just like that. It seemed that her injuries had healed and she was in a hurry to hunt grand sovereigns. However, judging from Shen Yanqing's words, it would take a long time for her to come back again. After all, it was impossible for him to become a sovereign immediately. Zhou Xuanji sighed and flew out of the Black Castle. He first looked for Golden Crown Divine Lord. His expression turned weird. Golden Crown Divine Lord was napping on the ground. His body was bare and covered with big leaves. His fur. Zhou Xuanji almost laughed out loud. It must have been done by Shen Yanqing. This guy is really miserable. He didn't disturb Golden Crown Divine Lord but went to look for Mortal Sovereign. After Shen Yanqing left, Mortal Sovereign regained her freedom. She was rushing to the island and met Zhou Xuanji head-on. As soon as she saw that Zhou Xuanji was safe and sound, she was pleasantly surprised. Zhou Xuanji was the same. But just as the two of them wanted to speak, they remembered the previous cultivation scene. They couldn't help but fall silent. What happened before? Zhou Xuanji wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. He wanted to say sorry but when he thought about it carefully, it was Mortal Sovereign who took the initiative. However, Mortal Sovereign might have been controlled by Shen Yanqing. Mortal Sovereign shook her head and said, "No need to say more. For you, cultivation is the most important thing right now. Don't care about unnecessary romantic feelings." Zhou Xuanji was a little disappointed when he heard this. Generally speaking, shouldn't it be a man who says such things? Autarch Crimson Dust tightened his black robes and chuckled softly. "It seems she has already left. Since that is the case, I'll go back and train as well. That cultivation technique earlier allowed me to comprehend the laws of the soul." After speaking, she turned around and left. Zhou Xuanji stayed in place and fell into contemplation. This pair of sisters were really sisters. They acted so swiftly and decisively, making him feel like he was abandoned. He shook his head and laughed as he rushed toward the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. After a month, the 12 Law ancestors came to visit the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. This alarmed the nearby divine ranges. The news spread quickly. Soon, the news about Zhou Xuanji's breakthrough to Origin Fusion Divine Lord 10 Enlightened spread like wildfire in the Kunlun Origin Court. Origin Fusion Divine Lord 10 Enlightened. Even the range masters of some super divine ranges might not have such cultivation. For a moment, the gloomy atmosphere resounded again. More and more creatures were spreading the news, hoping that all living beings could elect Zhou Xuanji as the sovereign. As long as the Kunlun Origin Court didn't have a sovereign, all living beings couldn't feel at ease. All living beings were looking forward to an indomitable expert standing at the top of the Origin Court to protect the order of the Origin Court and resist all kinds of catastrophes. The 12 Law ancestors stayed in the Emperor's Sword Divine Range for 6 days before leaving. When they left, they all had smiles on their faces, looking very satisfied. In the meeting hall, Zhou Xuanji was chatting with the higher-ups of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. Ha ha ha. Now, we should congratulate our master. He is no longer the first candidate for the sovereign but the sovereign. Qiu Hu burst into laughter as if he had become the sovereign himself. Zhou Shaoxian stood up in excitement and asked, "Father, can we announce this in advance?" Zhou Xuanji nodded with a smile. He was no longer afraid of anyone in the Kunlun Origin Court. Naturally, he had no scruples. After cultivating with mortal sovereign, his cultivation had soared. He even comprehended a trace of the mortal rule. Next, he could continue to grow stronger by comprehending the mortal rule. Zhou Xuanji instructed, "The Origin Court will prepare for the sovereign's ascension. You don't have to worry too much. Just take care of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. When I become the sovereign, the Emperor's Sword Divine Range will be handed over to you. At that time, Tanhua will be the range master. The others will assist him. Also, gather all the disciples of the Emperor's Sword Court who are wandering outside." He began arranging the positions of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. No one dared to object to his arrangements. Everyone was very convinced by Zhou Tanhua. Chapter 873. While Zhou Xuanji was arranging the positions of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range, the Kunlun Origin Court was already in a heated argument. There was only one topic in all the divine ranges, and that was the position of supremacy. On the sovereign list, Zhou Xuanji sat firmly at the top. He had not lost to any other geniuses on the list. Zhou Xuanji is really going to become the sovereign. I heard that the 12 Law ancestors all went to visit him. When they came out, they were talking and laughing. Isn't that how it should be? Is his cultivation strong enough? It is said that becoming a supreme doesn't just depend on one's own cultivation. The Origin Court will grant you the supreme power. Come on, if the Origin Court had such power, it would have been used long ago. The sovereign divine ranges have already acknowledged him. After all, Zhou Xuanji has 2 sovereigns as his backing. Zhou Xuanji's name once again became a name that was passed down by everyone. Half a month later, the Origin Court made a public announcement, officially electing Zhou Xuanji as the current sovereign. This news was earth-shattering. All living beings rejoiced. This also meant that the dark period that had lasted for a long time had officially ended. 3 years later, at the peak of the Origin Court, Zhou Xuanji would be crowned as the sovereign with the title of Sword Emperor. The Sword Emperor had once brought terror to the Kunlun Origin Court, so Zhou Xuanji wanted to use the name of the Sword Emperor to protect all creatures and restore the Sword Emperor's reputation. Just like that, the name of the Sword Emperor spread through the mouths of all living beings. Zhou Xuanji officially became the Sword Emperor, the Sword Emperor who reigned above all worlds. Time flew by. 2 years later, Zhou Xuanji came out of closed-door cultivation, and one of the 12 Law ancestors, Senior Mei, was waiting outside the cultivation palace. Senior Plum immediately cupped his fists and bowed as soon as he saw him. "Greetings, Supreme Elder," Senior Plum said with a smile. She seemed very enthusiastic. Zhou Xuanji walked up to him and smiled as he asked, "Why have you come, Senior?" I don't dare. I hope that the Supreme One will not call me Senior in the future," Senior Plum said in fear and trepidation. He knew clearly that Xueqi was just being courteous and did not really revere him. With Xueqi's current strength, he was really not a match for him. Xueqi nodded and continued to ask, "What is it?" Senior Plum immediately replied. It turned out that the supreme palace built for him by the Origin Court had already been built. It was located at the peak of the Origin Court, an independent space that belonged to the highest position of the Kunlun Origin Court. The spiritual energy and Tao energy of the entire Kunlun Origin Court and the myriad realms would flow into it, and then flow to the various realms to realize the heavenly cycle. Then lead the way. I'll go take a look. Xueqi muttered. He originally wanted to teach Zhou Tanhua cultivation, but now, he had become interested in the sovereign plane. Senior Plum immediately led the way. The two of them moved out and quickly flew upwards. By the way, Sovereign, have you seen Sovereign Kong Sheng again? We originally wanted to invite him to participate in your ascension ceremony, but in the end, we discovered that his independent plane had already been destroyed. Where did he go? Senior Plum asked curiously. Sovereign Kong Sheng was a sovereign, after all. If they could rope him in or even have him assist Xueqi, it would be a blessing for the Kunlun Origin Court. Xueqi glanced at him and said, "Sovereign Kong Sheng is dead." Senior May's eyes widened when he heard this, and he said in a trembling voice, "How is that possible? He is a supreme martial artist." Wait a minute. How did Xueqi know about this? Could it be that he had teamed up with Little Sovereign? Senior May knew that Xueqi had killed the Sword Emperor and the Darkness Sovereign. Xueqi definitely did not have much respect for the sovereigns. Recalling Little Sovereign's rage that day, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. At that moment, Xueqi's image in his heart quickly rose. Next, Senior May became respectful. He didn't dare to speak rashly anymore. They didn't speak along the way. They passed through the spatial wall and arrived at the sovereign plane. This place was filled with clouds and mist. The blue sky was high and vast. In front of them was a towering, sword-like mountain. The mountain was hundreds of thousands of meters high and had a majestic aura. At the top of the mountain stood a magnificent palace. Two giant swords stood in front of the gate. This palace was built with Tao stones that are hundreds of millions of years old. You can cultivate at any time while living in it. Even if you rest, your cultivation will continue to improve. A virtuous demonstration array has been set up in the Sea of Clouds. When you move in, no one can break in without your permission. Senior May began introducing the sovereign plane to Xueqi. His tone was full of pride. This world also had his share of effort, and he was very satisfied with it. Xueqi nodded. Suddenly, two exterminating divine light burst out from his eyes. Swoosh! The exterminating divine light swept across, shocking Senior May. A loud bang resounded. A light blue light curtain appeared out of thin air, covering the entire mountain and blocking the exterminating divine light. The entire mountain shook violently, making Senior May shudder in fear. He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Fortunately, Xueqi's exterminating divine light dissipated in time. Not bad, Xueqi said with a satisfied smile. After that, he flew forward. Senior May, who was originally worried, immediately beamed with joy and hurriedly followed. In the universe filled with white light, Shen Yanxing was moving quickly. Her eyes were cold as she locked her gaze ahead. She saw a green light speeding ahead, making it impossible for her to catch up. Don't chase anymore. It's impossible for you to catch up with me. A female voice came from the green light, full of anger. Shen Yanxing let out a cold snort. She ignored it and continued to chase at full speed. The two chased each other. Soon, they rushed out of the white light space and came to a vast starry sky. Countless creatures were fighting in front of them. They were all over the starry sky. The scale was huge and there were corpses everywhere. Shen Yanxing and the green light directly passed through the battlefield. In an instant, all the creatures and stars were directly shattered, turning into flying ashes. The space was also shattered. Spiritual chi poured into the cracks, taking away countless flying ashes. Such a scene had happened before. In order to chase the green light, Shen Yanxing had destroyed countless planes. Let's see who will stop first, Shen Yanxing said with a cold smile. As she spoke, she licked her lips. Even though she looked like a young girl, she still gave people a very evil feeling. When the green light heard this, it flew even faster, gradually distancing itself from Shen Yanxing. Shen Yanxing frowned. She didn't expect the other party to be able to accelerate. At this moment, a huge black vortex appeared in front of them. It swallowed the turbulence of time and space. It was extremely terrifying. A big black hand reached out and grabbed the green light before putting it into the black vortex. Shen Yanxing stopped in fright. She looked at the black vortex vigilantly and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" This black vortex appeared so suddenly that she couldn't see through it. There seemed to be countless demons hidden in the darkness. It was very terrifying. After a while, a hoarse voice came from the black vortex. "Little girl, I advise you not to create a massacre. You have attracted the attention of many immortal existences. Although you are strong, you are not the strongest." Shen Yanxing's eyebrows furrowed even tighter. She asked impolitely, "You're talking nonsense. Get out now. Let me see what kind of immortal existence you are." She had a magical ability to escape. Even if she was no match, she could still escape. This was her arrogance. Chapter 874. Humph! A girl who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The hoarse voice coldly snorted. As soon as the voice fell, the surrounding space-time turbulence began to riot. Shen Yanxing didn't panic at all. Instead, she sneered and said, "Can you stop talking nonsense? If you don't want to offend me, hand over that guy. I will definitely eat her." She raised her hands, causing the surrounding space-time to fluctuate visibly. In the blink of an eye, the entire space-time turbulence was wantonly twisting like countless water dragons surging. The scene was very spectacular. The black vortex suddenly shrank and quickly turned into a black ball with a diameter of only 6 feet. It was flashing with a faint red light. A figure emerged from the surface of the black ball. It was an old man with disheveled hair. He looked like a ferocious ghost. His expression was horrifying. His eyes were full of stones, making people shudder. Upon seeing him, Shen Yanxing couldn't help but frown. She asked in a deep voice, "Are you the legendary Black Demon Xian ancestor?" Black Demon Xian ancestor. As soon as she thought of this person, she didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. "Little girl, since you know my name, do you still want to eat her?" Black Demon Xian ancestor looked at Shen Yanxing coldly and asked in a cold voice. His voice was so hoarse, filled with endless killing intent. Shen Yanxing suddenly laughed and said, "Well, I admit defeat." After saying that, she turned around and left, quickly disappearing into the space-time turbulence. Black Demon Xian ancestor stood on the black ball. He raised his right hand and the green light appeared in his hand. He murmured, "What is the origin of that girl? She is hunting grand sovereigns everywhere. Is she related to that person?" His expression became solemn. He pondered for a while and finally chose to leave. The black ball shrank and disappeared into thin air with him. As soon as he left, Shen Yanxing appeared in his previous position. "Humph, Black Demon Xian ancestor, do you really think I am afraid of you? I happen to be looking for you. As long as I refine you, I will be able to transform. At that time, I will devour the soul source and surpass Grand Sovereign." Shen Yanxing excitedly muttered to herself. She shook her body and disappeared. Kunlun Origin Court. Sovereign Plain. Zhou Xuanji was sitting on the golden throne. Behind him, there were countless huge barriers coiling around him. He looked majestic and domineering. The hall was wide and was filled with immortal mist. Then, giant pillars emerged from the mist, rushing into the clouds above. The air of an immortal, the lofty sentiments of a supreme being. Senior Mei stood in the hall and rubbed his hands. He asked with a smile, "How do you feel, Sovereign?" Zhou Xuanji nodded in satisfaction and said with a smile, "I can sense endless Tao energy flowing toward me. This feeling is very good. I'm very satisfied with this palace. I will reward you in the future." A supreme being was the faith of all living beings. Once he became a supreme being, a single word from him would be enough to abolish the 12 law ancestors, and no one would dare to object. Only I am supreme. This was a grand supreme. When Senior Mei heard this, she couldn't help beaming with joy. He rolled his eyes and said, Why don't you rest here first? I'll go back and prepare for the ascension with the other ancestors. We can't be careless about this. We will definitely make this the greatest event of the Kunlun origin court and let the name of the Sword Emperor spread throughout the world. Forever engraved in the river of history. Xueqi nodded, and Senior Mei left immediately. After his aura completely disappeared, Xueqi closed his eyes. He began to comprehend the laws of the mortal world that he had obtained earlier. The Origin Fusion Divine Lord was already superior to most living beings, but he was still far from being comparable to a Grand Supreme. He wanted to become stronger. At least before the next time he met Shen Yanqing, he had to have the power to protect himself. He took out the Lesser Supreme Sword, making it hover beside him. Little Sovereign's soul flew out as well. This place is really magnificent. It's even more magnificent than my Supreme Palace, Little Sovereign exclaimed. Little Sovereign sighed with a face full of envy. Xueqi asked without opening his eyes, "Do you want to be resurrected?" He also had the help of the souls of 9 powerful cultivators. All of them had been resurrected and reincarnated by him. Now, they were wandering around the world. He had always been grateful to Little Sovereign. Therefore, he was willing to resurrect Little Sovereign. Little Sovereign's eyes immediately lit up when he heard this. But the next second, his eyes dimmed again. Humph. I will not be resurrected. Once I am resurrected, how long will it take for me to cultivate again? I might as well follow you like this. I believe that you will surpass all the other sovereigns. Maybe you will have the ability to resurrect me and restore me to my peak state, Little Sovereign said with a proud smile. Little Sovereign smiled proudly. His expression was as annoying as ever. Xueqi opened one eye, glanced at him, and asked curiously, "Do you really have that kind of ability?" Little Sovereign was a genuine Grand Sovereign. It wasn't easy to resurrect him, let alone directly raise his cultivation to the pinnacle. Wasn't that too difficult? As long as you dare to think about it, it may not be impossible. Little Sovereign said with a smile. There was some expectation in his eyes. He once heard his master say that the end of cultivation was omnipotent. The mind could transform everything. As long as one thought about it, anything could come true. Xueqi began to look forward to it. If it was really as Little Sovereign said, what kind of realm would it be? But then again, your little wife seems to have obtained the inheritance of an immortal existence. She can even hunt great sovereigns. This is incredible. You must be careful. She is no longer the same as before, Little Sovereign said in a solemn tone. His tone suddenly changed as he spoke in a solemn tone. He shuddered at the thought of his soul being scattered by Shen Yanqing. The little girl from back then had already become a great evil demon. She could even threaten his life. Xueqi asked doubtfully, "How strong is she? Compared to you, who is stronger?" Little Sovereign glared at him and said in a bad mood, "My cultivation is not my greatest strength. My knowledge, my experience, my calmness, my wisdom, these are. She is stronger than you? I already said it. I rely on my wisdom. You are weaker than her." Okay. Little Sovereign was rendered speechless by Xueqi's retort. Xueqi was even more curious about Shen Yanqing's experience. How did the once unreliable lass get to where she was today? Just as the two were chatting, the Void Boundary Palace made another move. Xueqi flew out of the Kunlun Origin Court with 6 Void Boundary Heavenly Sovereigns and headed toward the Lower Realms universe. "Where do you want to go?" A cold voice came, startling Xueqi. He immediately stopped and looked around. He saw a figure descend. Surprisingly, it was Beast Sovereign. Beast Sovereign's face was expressionless as he said, "Xueqi, it's time for us to settle our grievances. If you don't resist, this sovereign will make you feel better." Seeing that it was him, Xueqi smiled disdainfully and said, "I was wondering who it was. It turns out to be the famous Super Range Master, Beast Sovereign. How is your evil Sky Divine Range now? Has it become a Sovereign Divine Range?" The Void Boundary Heavenly Sovereigns became nervous. They had grown up listening to Beast Sovereign's prestige. They were naturally afraid. Humph! Beast Sovereign let out a cold snort. He then stretched out his hand and grabbed Xueqi from a distance. Xueqi's expression drastically changed. His body flew uncontrollably toward Beast Sovereign. Chapter 875. Pa. Beast Sovereign's right hand clasped Xueqi's neck. Xueqi's face instantly turned red. He stared into Xueqi's eyes and said in a cold voice, "Ever since you appeared and told me about the future, this sovereign has been tricked. Now, my evil sky divine range has been destroyed. Tell me, how should this sovereign punish you?" In the distance, the 6 void boundary heavenly sovereigns widened their eyes. Their bodies were stiff. They were extremely nervous. Xueqi suddenly showed a strange smile and said, "Don't you want to know what has happened in the future?" Beast Sovereign frowned upon hearing this. "Now our fates are actually connected. Xueqi has become the sovereign. I have no place to live in the Kunlun origin court. And your evil sky divine range has been destroyed. The 12 ancestors are behind it. They pushed Xueqi. And with Xueqi's character, he will definitely repay them in the future," Xueqi continued. His words made Beast Sovereign's brows furrow even tighter. He knew very well that Xueqi was deliberately trying to fool him. But he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope in his heart. He wanted to know what his future would be like. Xueqi saw his hesitation and couldn't help but continue. "The future is not fixed. It can be changed. Xueqi has successfully changed his fate. The past has already happened. It's useless even if you kill me. It's better for us to join hands and create a new future together." Crack! Beast Sovereign directly twisted his neck and turned to look at the 6 void boundary heavenly sovereigns, saying, "A bunch of worms at the mercy of others." Beast Sovereign disappeared with Xueqi, leaving the 6 void boundary heavenly sovereigns behind. They were really afraid of facing Beast Sovereign. "What should we do now?" asked a void boundary heavenly sovereign cautiously. He looked around, fearing that Beast Sovereign would come back. "Run!" Without Xueqi, the void boundary palace will be controlled by the origin court sooner or later. We must leave. That's right. Once the ancestors find out what we have done, we will definitely die. After the 6 void boundary heavenly sovereigns discussed, they quickly made a decision and retreated. In the sovereign plane, Xueqi was sitting on the golden throne. He supported his cheek with his right hand, looking very lazy. He murmured, "Beast Sovereign, this is the path you have chosen. You have already regretted it. Why do you continue to sink?" He couldn't understand Beast Sovereign's excessive trust in fate. In any case, Beast Sovereign was also a super vain master. How could he fall into such a swamp? He was hesitating whether he should help Beast Sovereign or not. But facing the current him, what kind of mentality would Beast Sovereign have? Forget it, let him be. Xueqi let out a sigh. Beast Sovereign had changed. When the evil sky divine range was in trouble, he didn't appear. Previously, he even wanted to harm the Emperor Sword divine range. In such a situation, Xueqi couldn't persuade Beast Sovereign at all. Everyone had their own fate. He couldn't care less. Right now, he had yet to truly become a supreme being. After thinking about it, Xueqi slowly closed his eyes and continued to comprehend the rules of the mortal world. Recently, he had a deep understanding of the rules of the mortal world. Somehow, he had already touched the realm above the Origin Fusion Divine Lord. He had once asked Little Supreme how to break through to the Grand Supreme Realm by himself. Little Sovereign answered. He needed the guidance of Supreme Force. Every generation's Supreme Being would leave behind a strand of Supreme Being's power for generations to fuse with. This would allow the Supreme Beings of the later generations to have a better foundation. Logically speaking, the higher the level, the stronger the Supremes should be. But the environment was the biggest factor that determined one's strength. The worse the era, the stronger the Supremes born. In the blink of an eye, the day of the Sovereign's ascension had finally arrived. Xueqi stood on the top of the mountain. Behind him was a dense immortal mist that blotted out the sky. The 12 Law ancestors were kneeling in the void below the Sovereign's plane. Below them was the Kunlun Origin Court. Tens of millions of Origin Court divine soldiers were kneeling before the 12 Law ancestors. Every inferior divine soldier's face was filled with fanaticism. It was a great honor for them to be able to witness the ascension of the Sovereign with their own eyes. At the same time, close to 10,000 divine ranges were silent. Countless living beings were raising their heads in anticipation. All the creatures could see Zhou Xuanji's majestic figure when they looked up. This scene was created by the Sage Manifestation Array. Inside the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. Father's figure is so mighty. How did he do it? Does he already have the strength of a sovereign? Zhou Xiaoxian asked excitedly. Zhou Xuanji had been away for some time. She thought that he had broken through again. The others standing on the hillside had the same thought. Xiao Jinghong sighed in amazement. Revered teacher is indeed revered teacher. I thought that my breakthroughs outside were already big enough, but compared to him, it's nothing. His face was filled with admiration. Zhao Zongjian, Lin Changge, Ning Zifeng, Chen Bantian, Meng Tianlang, and the others were the same. They were all excitedly discussing Zhou Xuanji's strength. Jiang Shui looked up with a smile. She had been looking forward to this day for a long time. When it really came, she realized that she wasn't too excited. Instead, she felt that everything was reasonable. He deserved all of this. Today is the grand event of the Kunlun Origin Court that only happens once in a billion years. The new sovereign is about to ascend. A law ancestor's voice resounded across the entire Kunlun Origin Court. His voice was so majestic and awe-inspiring. Sword Emperor Zhou Xuanji was born in a mortal world. His starting point was lower than all living beings in the Kunlun Origin Court. But with his extraordinary aptitude, he became the sovereign in less than 2,000 years. Ever since he entered the Kunlun Origin Court, he showed his brilliance and soared into the sky. The law ancestor began talking about Zhou Xuanji's past. His voice was full of emotion and stirring up the crowd. Everyone's blood boiled as they listened. They couldn't hold back their excitement. All kinds of phenomenons bloomed at the top of the Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji stood before the cliff. Listening to the law ancestor's voice, a smile appeared on his face. The sovereign's position. He really did it. Once upon a time, he even fantasized about what he would see if he became the sovereign. Now he saw it. All living beings bowed down to him. Everything was under his feet. Rumble. The Tao energy in the sovereign's plane began to riot. More accurately, the Tao energy in the entire Kunlun Origin Court was rioting. All of it surged toward the sovereign's plane. Above Zhou Xuanji's head, purple clouds gathered, and an immense pressure descended. A violent gale swept up, stirring up the surrounding celestial mist. Zhou Xuanji looked up. His black hair danced wildly in the wind, covering more than half of his face. He peeked into the purple clouds with his exterminating divine eyes and mumbled, "Could this be the sovereign's power?" The sovereign's power existed everywhere in the Kunlun Origin Court. Was this the reason why the law ancestors couldn't use it? He took out the lesser supreme sword and asked in a low voice, "What should I do?" Little Sovereign's soul flew out. As soon as he saw the purple clouds above, he smiled and said, "You don't need to do anything. Just wait for its arrival." A look of relief appeared in his eyes. It could be said that he had watched Zhou Xuanji grow step by step until he became the sovereign today. This was the first time he had seen a junior. He was optimistic about becoming the sovereign. Chapter 876. The technique ancestor's voice was still resounding, solemn and majestic. All living beings were listening carefully. Listening to Zhou Xuanji's growth experience, all of them felt their blood boiling and their fighting spirit soaring. Putting aside his current achievements, who would have thought that Zhou Xuanji would become the sovereign? Zhou Xuanji had written an inspirational story with his own opportunities. For all living beings, this was a story that happened around them. It was very close and very real. Under such a feeling, all living beings had an extreme sense of worship for Zhou Xuanji. Even those geniuses who hated or envied Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but sigh in admiration. The technique ancestor's speech lasted for a long time. The billowing purple sea gathered above Zhou Xuanji's head. Countless purple qi fell like stars and quickly poured into his body, transforming his muscles and bones. Zhou Xuanji accepted the baptism of these purple qi with a smile on his face. Awesome! He could feel that his sovereign divine power was transforming. It wasn't just becoming stronger, but it was changing qualitatively. Faintly, he saw countless figures descending from the purple sea like a group of immortals. It was a very artistic conception. Even Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but immerse himself in it. Little Sovereign, floating behind him, excitedly said, "They're here. They're here." Great Sovereign is also known as Court Realm Lord Great Sovereign. Every 100 million years, a court can only give birth to one Court Realm Lord Great Sovereign. If you were a little later, I'm afraid you would have to wait for 100 million years. And this is a special case. Generally speaking, the sovereign reigns for billions of years. Xueqi didn't care. His eyes were focused on the purple sea with a calm expression. Those sovereign divine shadows drilled into his mind. In an instant, his consciousness exploded. Purple halos flew out of his body, wrapped around him, and quickly circled around him. The origin of battle, the will is firm, indestructible, indelible, the will transforms into God. The origin of time, the past and the future are close at hand. Invert time and space, and only respect one's heart. The origin of radius, the stars revolve. 10,000 worlds are a square, the vertical is a circle, the radius and the circle are one. The origin of change, the body turns into all things, all sources obey. One change, one source, one grace. Different majestic voices exploded in Xueqi's mind, one after another. Past sovereigns. He heard the voices of Little Sovereign, Sovereign Kong Shang, Sovereign Darkness, and Sovereign Wu Zhou. The Supremes were all talking about their own origin laws in unison. At first, Xueqi only felt that it was very noisy, but he soon entered a state of enlightenment. The ruler of the court realm was a grand autarch. The ruler of a court, and the 3,000 origin laws were at his disposal. At the same time, the laws of the myriad realms of the Kunlun origin court rushed toward the supreme plane. The Tao energy that had drilled into Xueqi's body was assimilated and turned into sovereign divine energy. Then, it overflowed from all his pores and flew out of the sovereign plane, landing in the Kunlun origin court and turning into brand new rules. This was a kind of good fortune, using the transformation of the laws to control the Kunlun origin court. The ascension of the supreme martial artist has officially begun. The Sword Emperor will transform into a supreme martial artist. Everyone should celebrate together. The ancestor of technique raised his voice. Like thunder, it bombarded everyone's ears. Countless golden lotuses floated down from the Paragon Plain and landed on the various divine ranges. With the Kunlun origin court taking the lead, the spiritual energy of all the great heavens realms began to surge. The spiritual energy was boiling and his Tao energy was increasing wildly. Everyone was pleasantly surprised, and they all shouted the Sword Emperor's name. Sword Emperor! Long live Sword Emperor! Supreme Sword Emperor! Sword Emperor! Sword Emperor! All the creatures of the various divine ranges were shouting the Sword Emperor's name. They gathered together as if they wanted to overturn the sky of each divine range. 3,000 origin laws were manifesting to celebrate the Sword Emperor. This day would be the most joyous day in the past 100 million years. At the border of the Kunlun origin court, in the void, Beast Sovereign and Xueqi looked up at Xueqi's majestic figure. They were silent for a long time. After a long time, Beast Sovereign had a complicated look on his face as he murmured, "He really succeeded." At this moment, his heart was filled with regret. If he had desperately cultivated Xueqi instead of Origin Court War God, perhaps his current situation would be completely different. The evil sky divine range might still exist, or even be stronger. After all, even the Emperor's Sword divine range still existed, and its power was growing day by day. It's useless to regret. We no longer have a foothold in this court. Let's retreat, Xueqi said, shaking his head. Xueqi shook his head. He appeared calmer than Beast Sovereign. What was done could not be undone. Instead of regretting here, it was better to plan for the future. Beast Sovereign nodded, and the two turned around. He took out a scroll inlaid with red jade and waved it forward. Space fluctuated as a crack appeared. The two stepped into it one after another. The crack disappeared as if it had never appeared. On the other side, Beast Sovereign and Xueqi shuttled through the dark void. A ball of light was suspended above their heads, like a small sun, illuminating the void within a radius of 100 feet. At the same time, they were vigilant of their surroundings. We have to be careful after leaving the Kunlun Origin Court. There are many unknown existences lurking in the darkness. You may be swallowed by them before you can even see their appearance, Xueqi reminded. At the same time, he took out a sword, ready to fight at any time. It wasn't the first time he had come outside the Kunlun origin court. He was very scared every time he came. Beast Sovereign didn't answer, but his eyes were very sharp. He was vigilant in all directions. The two moved forward at full speed. After an unknown period of time, a light appeared in front of them. Xueqi heaved a long sigh and said, "Finally, we are leaving this damn ghost domain. Next is..." Before he could finish his words, terrifying shadows that resembled dragons and flood dragons suddenly appeared from the darkness 1,000 feet away, surrounding them tightly. The two immediately stopped in fright. "What are these things?" Beast Sovereign cried out in horror. The aura of these shadows was very terrifying. It made his hair stand on end. Xueqi gritted his teeth and replied, "I don't know. Damn it." He felt that his luck was really bad. He was besieged as soon as he came out. "Are you from the Kunlun origin court?" A cold voice came from above, startling them and making them look up. They couldn't see anything in the endless darkness. "Who are you?" Xueqi asked in a loud voice. His voice was trembling. He was obviously very scared. He was pretending to be calm. "Bring me to the Kunlun origin court, or else you will die here." The cold voice sounded again. A soul-freezing killing intent locked onto Beast Sovereign and Xueqi. They didn't dare to refuse. Sovereign Plain. Xueqi was still enjoying the sovereign's inheritance. The preaching of the sovereigns and the sovereign's divine power had made a qualitative change in his cultivation. In terms of his own sovereign's divine power, it was more than 10 times stronger than before. The sovereign's inheritance wasn't an infusion of wisdom. It was a kind of traction that led his sovereign's divine power to transform. He was getting closer and closer to the true sovereign. "Relax your body. Let your extermination immortal physique reach its most comfortable state. Don't offset it." Little Sovereign's voice came from behind. Xueqi immediately did as he was told. The next moment, he was pleasantly surprised to find that the growth rate of the sovereign's divine power had begun to accelerate. Chapter 877. Boom! In the sovereign plain, the mountains shook, and the celestial mist billowed. Xueqi stood on the edge of the cliff. A powerful gale surrounded his body, forming a majestic tornado that swept away the clouds. His aura continued to rise, like a hot knife cutting through butter, unable to be stopped. The 12 ancestors, who were closest to the sovereign plain, looked up. They were pleasantly surprised. So fast. So powerful. He can accept the sovereign's power so quickly. Seems like he will become a true sovereign soon. Kunlun Origin Court will welcome a new era. I think he will become the most powerful sovereign in history. The 12 ancestors discussed among themselves. They were all full of confidence in Xueqi. Since ancient times, very few sovereigns had the same experience as Xueqi. Moreover, Xueqi had connections with several sovereigns. Such talent and luck were rare. Senior Mei smiled and said, "It's time to promote the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. Before the sovereign gives the order, we should take action." The other ancestors nodded. They did not hate the Emperor's Sword Divine Range at all. Since the Emperor's Sword Divine Range was established, other than Xueqi's wife, the other disciples had never caused trouble. Even after Xueqi became the first candidate to become the sovereign, they rarely left the divine range. All of them were cultivating diligently. Such a divine range was the favorite of the ancestors. After all, the Kunlun Origin Court needed a large number of powerful cultivators to deal with the previous predicament. Immediately, an ancestor left to arrange the promotion of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. Xueqi was reborn. Everyone rejoiced. This kind of life lasted for several decades. This day, a majestic aura engulfed the entire Kunlun Origin Court. I, Xueqi, have been recognized by all sovereigns and have officially become a great sovereign of the court realm. My title is the Sword Emperor. I will protect the Kunlun Origin Court with all my power. I will help the Kunlun Origin Court surpass history and create an unprecedented era. Xueqi's voice resounded across the world like a great bell, shaking everyone's soul. The peaceful Kunlun Origin Court was in a great commotion again. At the same time, The sword spirit's voice resounded in Xueqi's mind. Analyze that the sword owner has reached the great sovereign of the court realm. Gotcha begins. Ding! Congratulations, the sword owner has obtained the soul of court-toppling origin, Kunlun sword, battle body explosion. Xueqi slowly opened his eyes. The violet light in his eyes made his eyes look like purple gems, mysterious and majestic. The ruler of the court realm was a grand autarch, grand supreme being. His supreme god force had already transformed. Compared to before he broke through, he felt that he was more than 10,000 times stronger. His exterminating divine eyes had also transformed. With a casual glance, his eyesight could penetrate the walls of space. The unprecedented power did not inflate his heart. Instead, he was very calm. This is a grand sovereign, Xueqi mumbled to himself with a slight smile. Information about the Soul Kunlun sword appeared before his eyes. Sword name, Soul Kunlun sword level, court toppling description. This sword was created by the soul origin of the Kunlun origin court supreme sword emperor. Using the soul origin to power this sword, it possesses a terrifying sword power that can destroy an origin court. To use this sword, one needs to be the ruler of the court realm, great supreme realm. Ding! Since the host has obtained the court-toppling divine sword, the divine sword's level will be updated. The sword spirit's voice came again, and Xueqi raised his brow. Another update. It seemed that the supreme legendary sword system was also continuously growing stronger. After that, he activated his inherited battle physique. A wave of memories flowed into his mind. This was a secret technique that could stimulate the potential of one's body, allowing one's power to increase explosively for a short period of time. This secret technique was extremely demanding on one's body. The stronger one's body, the greater the increase. Such a secret technique was very easy for the current Xueqi to master. He did not move his body. He easily learned it with his divine will. He did not try it. With his current ability, once he activated his supreme god force, this sovereign plane would most likely shatter into pieces. He changed into a brand new purple robe. The robe was embroidered with numerous legendary swords, forming the pattern of a divine steed. Then, he put on the Sword Emperor divine crown. His entire aura changed suddenly. At this moment, his aura was no weaker than Sovereign Wu Zhou's. He directly teleported into the palace and sat on his golden throne. "Come in," he said softly. As the sound of his voice faded, the 12 ancestors of technique appeared in the palace. The technique ancestors were stunned. They had just heard Xueqi's voice, and before they could react, they were teleported in by a mysterious force. So powerful. They looked up and felt deep veneration for Xueqi, who was high above them. They came back to their senses and knelt down. "Greetings, Sovereign." The 12 technique ancestors cupped their fists and said in unison. Xueqi said softly, "Get up. Tell me everything about the Kunlun origin court." Having heard this, the technique ancestors got up and began talking about the various rules and powers of the Kunlun origin court. This lecture lasted for nearly half a month. The Kunlun origin court was too big. The technique ancestors had to take turns to talk about it. Xueqi did not interrupt and listened quietly. After the technique ancestors finished talking, he grasped all the information about the Kunlun origin court. "In the future, you will still be the technique ancestors, and your positions will be second only to me. I need you to pick one person from each divine range to form a god pillar. The god pillar's position is only one level lower than yours. They are on the same level as the range lord. None of the god pillars can be a range lord," Xueqi said. Hearing this, the 12 technique ancestors' expressions changed drastically. One of them asked cautiously, "Sovereign, what rights do the god pillars have?" Xueqi looked at him and said calmly, "They represent the divine range and talk to me directly. Their positions in the divine range are on the same level as the range lord. They can only be executed if I give the order. At the same time, the god pillars cannot interfere with the management of the divine range. They can only advise them." The technique ancestors' eyelids twitched wildly. Decentralization. This was to suppress all the divine ranges. They thought about it and realized that this was a good thing. Each divine range had someone who could restrain the range lord. For the 12 technique ancestors, It was more beneficial than harmful. For example, Beast Sovereign dared to order the evil Sky Divine Range to defy the Origin Court. If the God Pillars were present, the Range Lord's every move would be transmitted to Zhou Xuanji. As for whether the God Pillars would be on the same side as the Range Lord, the probability was too low. After all, the Technique ancestors were the ones who decided the God Pillars. As long as they had brains, they would not choose someone who was on the same side as the Range Lord. Also, the Great Elimination will continue. But I want you to send people to investigate the details of each venue. You can't achieve absolute fairness, but you have to be as fair as possible, Zhou Xuanji continued. After that, he told them about the other plans he had in mind. What he mentioned was the overall situation of the Kunlun Origin Court. He did not mention the Emperor Sword Divine Range. The Technique ancestors admired him in their hearts. Only such a sovereign was trustworthy. No matter what for now, Zhou Xuanji really hoped that the Kunlun Origin Court would be better. His decision was also good for all living beings. Chapter 878. Okay, let's stop here. You can leave, Zhou Xuanji said with his eyes closed. Zhou Xuanji said with his eyes closed, and his tone became lazy. Having heard this, the 12 ancestor immediately bowed and left. After they left, Zhou Xuanji sat on the golden throne in deep thought. Now that he was a supreme being, his perspective of thinking was different from before. He knew that the Kunlun Origin Court wasn't safe. So he wanted to improve the overall strength of the Kunlun Origin Court. He couldn't be the only one powerful. When he heard the 12 ancestors' explanation, he already had a huge plan in his mind. The Kunlun Origin Court can't be limited to my home, Zhou Xuanji mumbled to himself. He didn't finish his sentence. He continued to adjust his sovereign divine energy. The next day, the Origin Court spread the news of the God Pillar position to all the divine ranges. Most creatures expressed their support for Zhou Xuanji's decision. In their eyes, this was an opportunity for their future. It was also an opportunity to find Zhou Xuanji directly. If the divine ranges were in danger, the God Pillars could ask for help from the sovereign. If they became God Pillars, they could reach the sky in one step. For a moment, the Kunlun Origin Court was in an uproar. The Kunlun Origin Court had nearly 10,000 divine ranges. Each divine range had countless creatures living in it. It wasn't easy to choose a suitable God Pillar in each divine range. The 12 ancestor were extremely cautious about Zhou Xuanji's first task. Ever since Zhou Xuanji broke through to Great Sovereign, they had been feeling great pressure. If they didn't do a good job, Zhou Xuanji might really make them step down from their positions. Emperor Sword Divine Range. Halfway up the mountain, in a courtyard, Jiang Shui, Xian Xianghua, and Zhou Shaoxian were chatting in a small pavilion. Zhou Shaoxian leaned on the table and sighed. When will father come back? I heard that the powerful cultivators of the Origin Court could go into closed-door cultivation for millions of years or even longer. Will he be like that too? It had been so long since Zhou Xuanji ascended to the throne. Her excitement had faded. She wanted to go to Zhou Xuanji's supreme palace to take a look. But he still hadn't come back, which made her very disappointed. Jiang Shui smiled as she peeled the spiritual fruit. Are you that free? Do you want me to betroth you to a good husband? That way, your attention can be diverted. Zhou Shaoxian curled her lips and said, I don't want to. My goal is not love. I want to follow in my father's footsteps. At the very least, I can't be left far behind by Tanhua. Jiang Shui rolled her eyes and smiled helplessly. This girl will never grow up. Xian Xianghua swirled her wine glass, lost in thought. Aunt Xian, what are you thinking about? Zhou Shaoxian suddenly patted Xian Xianghua's shoulder and asked. Xian Xianghua smiled and said, I'm thinking about the position of the godly pillar. Hearing this, Zhou Shaoxian was speechless, and Jiang Shui could not help but laugh. Aunt Xian, it seems that you are very dissatisfied with your son being the branch master. Zhou Shaoxian winked and smiled provocatively. Jiang Shui glared at her and snappily said, Will you only be happy when you go into closed-door cultivation for 100 years? Zhou Shaoxian was terrified when she heard that. She was most afraid of boring seclusion. She had to rest from time to time during her cultivation. This was also the biggest reason why she was surpassed by Zhou Tanhua. Zhou Tanhua was completely different from her. He loved to cultivate alone. Unless he encountered trouble in cultivation, he would rarely take the initiative to leave the place of cultivation. Of course not. There are only a few Origin Fusion Divine Lords in the Emperor Sword Divine range. Naturally, I won't decline, Xian Xianghua said, curling her lips. She didn't have any thoughts of scheming against him. She just wanted to make a name for herself. Even if she couldn't become the first in the Kunlun Origin Court, she wanted to be the second. Jiang Shui smiled and said, "You should cultivate well. Don't go out and cause trouble for him. Maybe you can even become the sovereign in the future." Xian Xianghua slightly furrowed her brow. She asked in surprise, "Why do you say that?" She could hear the deeper meaning in Jiang Shui's tone. "You still don't know him? When did he stay in one place for a long time?" Jiang Shui shook her head and said with a smile. She still remembered that Zhou Xuanji had told her about Sovereign Wu Zhou. In her opinion, the seed of leaving the Kunlun Origin Court had already taken root and sprouted in Zhou Xuanji's heart. Xian Xianghua thoughtfully murmured, "In that case, I won't be a god pillar anymore. I have to cultivate in seclusion. I can't fall behind too much." She wanted to follow Zhou Xuanji more than make a name for herself. She couldn't imagine what dangers there were outside the Kunlun Origin Court. Only by following him could she feel at ease. At the same time, she was also looking forward to more exciting experiences. "What are you thinking? I just became the sovereign and you are already looking forward to my downfall?" Zhou Xuanji's voice suddenly drifted over, startling the three women. They saw Zhou Xuanji slowly walking down from the sky. His purple robe was fluttering in the wind. He had an imposing appearance, fully displaying the aura of a sovereign. "Father!" Zhou Xiaoxian stood up excitedly. She looked at Zhou Xuanji. The more she looked, the more excited she became. After not seeing him for so long, she felt that her father seemed to have changed into a different person. Who would dare to question whether Zhou Xuanji was worthy of being the sovereign now? Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua were even more dazzled. This was their man. The person with the highest status in the Kunlun Origin Court. Zhou Xuanji walked up to Zhou Xiaoxian and rubbed her head. Then, he walked up to Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua and opened his arms. The two women immediately jumped into his embrace. With his wife and daughter by his side, Zhou Xuanji smiled happily. Only in this moment did he feel real. "Don't worry, no matter where I go, I will take you with me. It was like this in the past, now, and in the future," Zhou Xuanji said with a gentle smile. Zhou Xuanji said with a gentle smile, and the two girls smiled happily. Zhou Xiaoxian came up to his side and curled her lips, asking, "Father, I thought you had forgotten about us." She pretended to be unhappy, but the excitement in her eyes couldn't be concealed. Zhou Xuanji chuckled and said, "I came back to pick up your mother and Aunt Xian. As for you, stay in the Emperor Sword Divine range and cultivate well." Having heard this, Zhou Xiaoxian immediately put on a sad face. Zhou Xuanji immediately understood that she was acting. He just smiled and didn't say anything. After that, he pulled the two women to sit down and talked about the recent situation of the Emperor Sword Divine range. Since he became the sovereign, the 12 law ancestors and many divine ranges sent gifts one after another. This caused the spiritual qi in the Emperor Sword Divine range to grow continuously. The environment was getting better and better. The resources that the disciples could receive had also increased exponentially. With Zhou Xuanji in the lead, the disciples were all working hard to cultivate. Their cultivation was constantly improving. Ran Niming became the first person to break through to Origin Fusion Divine Lord after Xian Xianghua and Zhou Tanhua. This guy was the incarnation of destiny. After joining Zhou Xuanji's banner, his destiny was connected to Zhou Xuanji's. And Zhou Xuanji was the sole sovereign, which made his cultivation soar. Fortunately, this guy didn't get arrogant. He was still loyal to the Emperor Sword Divine range. In addition, the number of 9 vast heavens and Tao ancestors was also increasing rapidly. They were bound together for good or bad. After Zhou Xuanji became the sovereign, the destiny of all the disciples of the Emperor Sword Divine range had also improved by leaps and bounds. It could be said that when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs rise to heaven. Chapter 879. The news of Zhou Xuanji's return to the Emperor's Sword Divine Range didn't spread. The Emperor's Sword Divine Range was also in harmony. The disciples still didn't know that Zhou Xuanji was back. The reason for this was that Zhou Xuanji didn't want to cause trouble. Not to mention that his home wasn't just the Emperor's Sword Divine Range but the entire Kunlun Origin Court. 10 years passed just like that. During these 10 years, he taught his children to cultivate. He didn't interfere in the affairs of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range. Occasionally, he would give advice to Zhou Tanhua. On this day, Zhou Xuanji was about to leave with Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua. Before leaving, he looked at Zhou Tanhua and asked curiously, "Are you going to keep this form?" After so long, Zhou Tanhua still maintained his youthful appearance. Although this appearance was very pleasing, Zhou Xuanji felt that he should have the spirit and appearance of a boy. The appearance is not important. What's important is the heart. I can change into the appearance of a normal man at any time, but I don't think it's necessary, Zhou Tanhua said with a smile. Zhou Tanhua said with a faint smile. He seemed to be even calmer than Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji's calmness was sharp. On the other hand, Zhou Tanhua seemed approachable. It was easy for people to feel close to him. He looks good just like this. Zhou Shaoxian rubbed Zhou Tanhua's head and chuckled. It was precisely because of Zhou Tanhua's appearance that she often teased him. After so many years, it was the same every time they met. In her eyes, Zhou Tanhua was a younger brother who would never grow up. But in the eyes of others, she was the one who would never grow up. She was more like a younger sister. Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said with a smile, "After we leave, you have to support each other. After all, you are brother and sister. Apart from us, there is no one closer to you. Understand? Don't give up on each other at any time." Zhou Tanhua nodded while Zhou Shaoxian curled her lips. Okay, you speak as if we are going to part forever," Zhou Shaoxian said, waving her hand. She pretended to be impatient. But in fact, she felt wronged. She had never bid farewell like this in her life. She tried to comfort herself that she had already grown up. Jiang Shui looked at Zhou Shaoxian and felt very distressed. But she understood that her daughter had grown up. She should let her grow up. Zhou Xuanji looked at Zhou Shaoxian and said with a smile, "Okay, I will wait for you up there. I look forward to you finding me with your own ability." With that, he waved his right hand and disappeared with Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua. Zhou Shaoxian looked up. Through the sky of the Emperor's Sword Divine Range, she seemed to see the peak of the Origin Court. Cultivate well. Zhou Tanhua patted her on the shoulder and comforted her. Then, he turned around and left. Hearing this, Zhou Shaoxian came back to her senses and hurriedly turned around to chase after him. "Stinky little brother. What are you talking about? Is my cultivation weak?" Sovereign Plain. Zhou Xuanji and the others landed on the summit. Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua observed their surroundings, and they were all stunned. "This place is so beautiful. This world belongs to me. You can go wherever you want and create whatever you want," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. With a wave of his right hand, the doors of the Supreme Palace opened. The two women looked at each other and immediately flew in different directions. They wanted to take a look at the Supreme Plain first. The Supreme Plain didn't have a fixed boundary, and it could be continuously expanded. There were many natural treasures here, and it contained almost all the resources of the Kunlun Origin Court. This was all thanks to the 12 ancestors. Zhou Xuanji smiled and walked into the palace alone. He was going to continue studying the rules of the mortal world. In the mortal plane, Sovereign Mortal World was meditating in the sea of fog. Strands of soul shadows coiled around her like a group of dancing ghosts. It was very strange. Since parting with Zhou Xuanji, she had been focusing on cultivating the rules of the soul. Although it wasn't a leap forward, it was still a great epiphany. Suddenly she opened her eyes and said with a calm look, "Come out." Just as she spoke, a spatial crack appeared in front of her, and a figure stepped out. It was Zhou Fa. Looking at Zhou Fa, who looked exactly like Zhou Xuanji, Sovereign Mortal World said with a contemptuous smile, "You dare to come to me, a little ghost who doesn't dare to show his true face?" Zhou Fa looked very nervous facing Sovereign Mortal World. He forced a smile and said, "I came here to ask you a favor. After it's done, you will have the opportunity to break through to the Great Sovereign Realm." You want to read my fortune? I don't dare. Xueqi's smile was very unnatural. Cold sweat was dripping from his forehead. Sovereign Mortal World closed her eyes and asked, "What's the matter?" Xueqi replied, "It's like this. There is a big opportunity outside the Kunlun Origin Court. Dozens of great sovereigns will gather there. If you can let the Sword Emperor go, it will be beneficial for both you and the Sword Emperor." Sovereign Mortal World didn't speak and waited for him to continue. Xueqi explained slowly. After a long while, Xueqi looked up at Sovereign Mortal World and asked, "How is it?" Sovereign Mortal World didn't answer immediately, as if she didn't notice him talking. Xueqi wasn't in a hurry either. He waited patiently. "Okay, wait outside the court," Sovereign Mortal World said leisurely. Autarch Crimson Dust said slowly. Xueqi immediately bowed and left. She opened her eyes, stood up, and said with a smile, "You have been listening for so long, why don't you show yourself?" A beam of light descended from the sky and landed in front of her. Xueqi appeared majestically with the Emperor's Sword of Life and Death and a long sword radiating red light floating behind him. This red sword was the Kunlun Soul Sword. "What do you think?" Sovereign Mortal World asked with a smile as she looked at Xueqi. Xueqi shook his head and said, "It should be a trap. But I want to take a look. This is a good opportunity to get in touch with the outside world." Xueqi said that an ancient great sovereign had invited great sovereigns to meet him with the excuse of a sovereign's opportunity. There was no need to fight. They just wanted to get to know each other and obtain information about the sovereign's opportunity together. If this was said by a great sovereign, Xueqi might not think too much about it. But the other party sent Xueqi. He couldn't help but think too much. "You have just become a great sovereign. Do you want to stabilize yourself for a while?" Sovereign Mortal World asked with concern. She was a little surprised. She couldn't see through Xueqi's cultivation. This kid gave her a feeling that he was even more mysterious than the Sword Emperor and the Darkness Sovereign. He was like Sovereign Wu Zhou. "It's okay. I can stabilize myself better if I go out and fight," Xueqi said with a confident smile. Xueqi smiled confidently. He had already noticed Xueqi when he entered the Kunlun Origin Court. He deliberately let Xueqi in to see what tricks this guy had. Sovereign Mortal World nodded and said, "Then I will go with you." Xueqi raised his hand and said, "No, I have another request." "What is it?" "Teach my 2 wives to cultivate. When I come back, I will share half of the opportunity with you," Xueqi said. "Tiske, are you afraid that I will drag you down?" "No, I just feel that the Kunlun Origin Court needs someone to take charge. When the time comes, I will let you control the Divine Demonstration Array." "Yo, you have even mastered the Divine Demonstration Array?" The two began to chat and laugh. They were no longer as distant as before, but they still treated each other with respect. Looking at the current Xueqi, Sovereign Mortal World couldn't help but sigh. The feeling of being in anti-Kunlun had returned. Chapter 880. Mortal Sovereign did not refuse Xueqi's request to oversee the Kunlun Origin Court. And so, Xueqi took her back to the Sovereign's plane. He summoned Jiang Shui and Xian Xianghua. When the 2 girls saw Mortal Sovereign, they looked a little strange, especially Xian Xianghua. She used to regard Mortal Sovereign as her master. But now, she always felt awkward. "I will teach you cultivation in the future. I will leave only after the Sovereign returns," Mortal Sovereign said expressionlessly. Autarch Crimson Dust said expressionlessly. His tone was very calm, and he had returned to his usual demeanor. Jiang Shui said gracefully, "Then thank you." She had a smile on her face and her eyes. Her heart was as clear as a mirror. He had told her everything that happened between Xueqi and Mortal Sovereign. Mortal Sovereign nodded and said, "You guys talk first. I will find a place to cultivate." After that, she flew toward the horizon. As soon as she left, the pressure on Xian Xianghua was immediately reduced. "Should I call her sister now?" Xian Xianghua asked with a faint smile. Jiang Shui was startled. She covered her mouth and laughed. Xueqi said helplessly, "That was just an accident." He and Mortal Sovereign did not have that kind of relationship, and Mortal Sovereign did not want to become his woman directly. So he left it to fate. Next, he told the two girls about his upcoming journey. After listening to him, the two girls frowned. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. In my opinion, the Kunlun Origin Court has encountered successive disasters because it has been stuck in its own ways and can never get out, Xueqi said with a smile. He raised his hand and rubbed the long hair of the two girls with a gentle expression. He planned to stay for a few years before leaving. As for Xueqi, he would wait a little longer. He believed that Xueqi would wait until he appeared. The Kunlun Origin Court was still establishing a new order. He had to wait for the god pillars to be selected. A year later, Xueqi met with nearly 10,000 god pillars in the Supreme Palace. The 12 ancestors stood at the forefront. Everyone was very nervous facing Xueqi. No one dared to whisper. They all lowered their heads and waited for Xueqi to speak. Before coming, they had imagined all kinds of scenes. They thought that this sovereign would be very immature. But they did not expect Xueqi's aura to be so powerful. Even if he did not deliberately reveal it, they still felt suffocated. The absolute difference in strength made them not dare to have any improper thoughts, only endless reverence. The 12 law ancestors were like this as well. They sighed in admiration in their hearts. It seemed like the Sword Emperor had made a huge breakthrough again. Compared to a few years ago, the pressure that Xueqi gave them was even greater. Xueqi said slowly, "You are all the first god pillars. Don't think about taking care of your positions. From now on, there will be another god pillar selection every 1,000 years. The god pillar positions will be voted by the creatures in the divine range. If you can maintain the highest number of votes, you can be re-elected. If you don't have the highest number of votes, you will be replaced. If you fail, you will still have a chance to run for the position of the divine pillar in the future, understand?" The expressions of all the divine pillars changed greatly, falling from heaven to hell in an instant. Even the 12 ancestors of law were shocked. When they thought about it, they were instantly shocked. Such a rule could indeed spur on the divine pillars. If it was the branch master, he would probably overturn the heavens. The divine ranges belong to the Kunlun Origin Court, but they also belong to themselves. Xueqi was very clear about the feelings of the branch masters. When he was the Emperor Sword Divine Ranges range master, he did not want to be controlled by others. The god pillars he promoted were not taking away the freedom of the divine ranges. On the contrary, he was giving the creatures in the divine ranges a chance. The range masters might be furious, but everyone would be happy. Who did not want to climb higher and higher? Understood. Who dares not to understand? Senior May suddenly shouted. All the god pillars trembled in fear, and they responded in unison. Understood. Nearly 10,000 powerful cultivators shouted in unison. Their aura was so powerful that it seemed like they were going to turn the Supreme Palace upside down. The cultivation of these god pillars ranged from Tao Ancestor to Origin Fusion Divine Lord. After all, many divine ranges were powerful. Their top combat power was Tao Ancestor. Xueqi looked around and said, "Next, I will talk about the future plans of the Kunlun Origin Court. My goal is not just the Kunlun Origin Court and the worlds below. I want to break out of the Kunlun Origin Court. I believe everyone has more or less heard that there are other realms outside the Kunlun Origin Court. They were created by the sages. Before this, Sovereign Darkness and Sovereign Wu Zhou had been outside. I want to make the Kunlun Origin Court stronger and surpass all the previous eras." Everyone in the palace was dumbfounded. Xueqi's words made them feel like they were coming from the Arabian Nights. Hold on. According to the sovereign, could it be that there were other realms outside the Kunlun Origin Court that could threaten the safety of the Kunlun Origin Court? Surprise, fear, and excitement filled their hearts, making them feel very confused. The 12 ancestors looked at each other. They could see the excitement in each other's eyes. They were already aware of the threat of other realms. If it was Sovereign Wu Zhou who said this, they would only be worried. But since it was Xueqi, they somehow believed him. They saw a kind of hope in Xueqi, and a kind of domineering aura that Sovereign Wu Zhou did not have. He had become a sovereign at the age of 2,000. Such brilliance had never been seen before. Also, after the God Pillars matter is settled, I will leave the Kunlun Origin Court, Xueqi continued. Xueqi continued to speak. With these words, everyone was shocked. Leave. The 12 ancestors were the most terrified. They had already experienced the dark period without sovereigns. They did not want to experience it again. Sovereign. You. The ancestors hurriedly tried to persuade Xueqi. But just when they opened their mouths, they saw Xueqi raise his hand. Xueqi smiled and said, "It's not that I won't return. This is an invitation from a great sovereign. Do you understand what a great sovereign is? It's someone who is as powerful as me or even more powerful than me. He has gathered dozens of great sovereigns. I'm going to understand the situation outside the Kunlun origin court." Everyone was dumbfounded by his words. Dozens of great sovereigns. Their first reaction was that Xueqi had gone crazy. "Everyone, the Kunlun origin court has just been attacked by 3 great sovereigns. We can't be like before. We can't just sit and wait for death. The next plan is for all the divine ranges to stop all wars. All of you must cultivate hard. Without my order, if any divine range dares to start a war, I will annihilate them." Xueqi said in a deep voice. His domineering aura made all the god pillars tremble in fear. "When you go back, tell your range masters that not only must everyone cultivate hard, but so must the range masters and god pillars. All of you go back. Origin Court divine soldiers will come to hand over various tasks to you." Just when he finished speaking, Xueqi waved his right hand and teleported everyone out. Below the sovereign plane, the god pillars and the 12 ancestors were stunned in the air. They looked at each other in dismay and did not speak for a long time. After a long while, an Origin Fusion Divine Lord sighed in amazement. "Our sovereign is really amazing. I'm afraid that if we follow him, we will really surpass the past and present." You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.